They say love arrives when you least expect it. But what if it's 17 minutes late, delivered by two 6-year-old girls who aren't supposed to be there, and comes with a side of cold Chinese takeout? I'm Hannah Lewis, and this is the story of how a blind date I almost walked out on became the night that changed 4 lives forever. Stay until the end, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The Maple Avenue coffee shop had always been Hannah's sanctuary, tucked between a bookstore that smelled of old paper and dreams and a flower shop that exploded with color every spring. It was the kind of place where time moved slower, where the espresso machine hissed like a sleeping dragon, and where the owner, Mrs. Chen, knew everyone's order by heart. The walls were exposed brick, softened by hanging plants that cascaded down like green waterfalls, and the lighting was perpetually golden, the kind that made everyone look like they were in a romantic movie, even when they were just grading papers or fighting with their laptops. Hannah had been coming here for 3 years, ever since she'd moved to Maplewood to take over Dr. Harrison's veterinary practice. It was her Thursday night ritual: a caramel latte, a corner booth by the window, and whatever novel she was currently losing herself in. Tonight, however, was different. Tonight, she wasn't here for the comfort of routine. Tonight, she was on a blind date. And he was late. She glanced at her phone for what felt like the 100th time, 7:47 p.m., 17 minutes late. The text from her best friend Jenna that morning had been characteristically enthusiastic. "Hannah, I found him. Your perfect man. Eli Parker. Architect, single dad, amazing person. Trust me on this. 7:30 at Maple Ave Coffee. Don't bail." Hannah had almost bailed 3 times already today. Once while getting dressed, standing in front of her closet in her underwear, wondering why she'd agreed to this. Once in the car, her hand hovering over the ignition, telling herself she could just text an excuse. And once in the parking lot, watching couples walk in and out, looking so effortlessly happy that it made her chest ache. But she'd walked in anyway, because Jenna had used the magic words, "He's been through something hard, Han. He needs someone who gets it. Someone like you." Someone like you. Someone whose husband had walked out 3 years ago, 2 weeks after their 5th anniversary, leaving nothing but a note that said, "I can't be who you need me to be." Someone who'd spent the next year in therapy, learning to trust again, learning to believe that not everyone leaves, that not every promise is hollow. Hannah picked up her latte, her second one, because she'd finished the first in the anxious 20 minutes before 7:30, and took a sip. It had gone lukewarm. Mrs. Chen caught her eye from behind the counter and gave her a sympathetic look that somehow made everything worse. This was a mistake. She should leave. She should text Jenna something sarcastic about her matchmaking skills and go home to her dog, Bear, who never stood her up and always looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. She was reaching for her phone to do exactly that when the bell above the door chimed. But it wasn't a man who walked in. It was 2 identical 6-year-old girls. They stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the coffee shop with the intensity of tiny detectives on a mission. They wore matching red winter jackets that were slightly too big, like they'd borrowed them from their future selves. Their hair was the color of honey in sunlight, pulled back into somewhat lopsided ponytails that suggested good effort but imperfect execution. And their eyes, even from across the room, Hannah could see their eyes. They were the most striking shade of green, like sea glass or spring leaves, bright with intelligence and something else. Determination. The taller one, taller by maybe half an inch, locked eyes with Hannah and whispered something to her sister. They nodded in unison, then marched across the coffee shop with the confidence of people 3 times their age and 100 times their size. Hannah watched them approach, her finger frozen over her phone screen, her escape text to Jenna half composed and suddenly forgotten. "Excuse me," the taller girl said, stopping beside Hannah's booth with her hands clasped in front of her like a tiny businesswoman about to deliver a presentation. "Are you Miss Hannah?" Hannah blinked, twice. Yes?" "Oh, thank goodness!" The girl's shoulders sagged with relief. She slid into the booth across from Hannah without waiting for an invitation, and her sister followed suit, both of them scooting in until they were sitting side by side, green eyes fixed on Hannah with unnerving focus. "I'm Lily," the first girl announced. This is my sister Rose. We're twins, but I'm older by 4 minutes, so technically I'm in charge. She said this last part with the authority of someone who'd argued this point many times before. Only because you pushed, Rose muttered, but she was smiling. Hannah looked from one girl to the other, her brain struggling to catch up with the situation. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Not yet, Lily said brightly. But we will. You're here to meet our daddy, right? Mr. Eli Parker? The world seemed to tilt slightly. Your daddy? He's really sorry he's late, Rose jumped in, her voice softer than her sister's but no less earnest. He had an emergency at work. A pipe burst at the construction site, and he had to make sure the building didn't flood, Lily finished. He called Miss Jennifer, that's our babysitter, and told her he was going to be late, and he sounded so worried, and we couldn't let him mess this up, Rose concluded, her eyes going wide. This is really important. Hannah felt like she'd stepped into some kind of surreal dream. She looked around the coffee shop, half expecting a film crew to jump out and tell her she was being pranked. But no, just Mrs. Chen behind the counter, pretending not to eavesdrop, but definitely eavesdropping. Just the normal Thursday night crowd. Students with laptops, an elderly couple sharing a piece of cake, a man in the corner reading a newspaper, and 2 6-year-old girls who were looking at her like she was the answer to some question she hadn't been asked yet. Where's your babysitter? Hannah asked, because that seemed like the most responsible question to start with. Outside in the car, Lily said, pointing toward the window where Hannah could indeed see a young woman in a Honda Civic scrolling on her phone. Miss Jennifer said we could come in to see if you were here, but we have to go right back. But we wanted to meet you first. And tell you not to leave, Rose added quickly. Please don't leave. Daddy really wanted to be here. He tried on 4 different shirts this morning. 4, Lily confirmed. And he keeps looking at the calendar where he circled today's date. He drew a little smiley face next to it. Something in Hannah's chest, something that had been clenched tight with disappointment and the familiar ache of being forgotten, began to loosen. He drew a smiley face? In blue marker, Rose said solemnly, like this was a crucial detail. He only uses blue marker for really important things. Hannah couldn't help it. She laughed. It bubbled up from somewhere deep, surprising her with its genuine warmth. These girls, these tiny, determined, matching girls, had somehow found her, had come to save their father's date, had marched into this coffee shop like generals going into battle. Does your father know you're here? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. Both girls shook their heads, their ponytails swishing in unison. He thinks we're at home with Miss Jennifer, Lily admitted. But we told her it was an emergency, and she said we could come for just a minute because you were only 15 minutes away, and we couldn't let you think Daddy forgot about you, Rose finished, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. People forget about important things sometimes. But Daddy didn't forget. He's just late. There was something in the way she said it, something that made Hannah's throat tighten. These weren't just precocious kids playing matchmaker. There was a weight to their words, a history hidden in the shadows of their bright eyes. Miss Hannah? Lily leaned forward, her small hands flat on the table. Can we ask you something? Of course. Do you like kids? The question was so direct, so earnest, that Hannah answered without thinking. I love kids. I have 17 nieces and nephews. 17? Rose's eyes went wide. That's almost 20. My husband, ex-husband, came from a big family, Hannah explained, then immediately wondered why she was telling her life story to 6-year-olds. But there was something about them, something that made her want to be honest. I don't see them as much anymore, but I miss them, especially the little ones. Lily and Rose exchanged a look, one of those twin communications that happened in silence, in a language built from shared DNA and 6 years of being inseparable. She's perfect, Rose whispered. I told you, Lily whispered back. Then louder to Hannah, do you like Chinese food? Hannah blinked at the subject change. Yes? Good. Lily slid out of the booth with the same decisive energy she'd slid in with. Then you should definitely stay. Daddy will be here soon. He promised Miss Jennifer he'd be done by 8:30. That's only 43 minutes, Rose added, checking a plastic watch on her wrist that was definitely telling the wrong time. Maybe 42 now. Girls, Hannah started, but Lily was already pulling on her sister's arm. We have to go before Miss Jennifer comes in, she said. But we'll see you soon, Miss Hannah, really soon. Wait. Hannah stood up, but they were already heading for the door, moving with the practiced efficiency of children who'd perfected the art of quick escapes. At the door, Rose turned back, her expression suddenly serious. Miss Hannah, Daddy doesn't smile much anymore. Not real smiles. But when Miss Jenna called and said she had someone for him to meet, he smiled. A real one. So please stay? Before Hannah could answer, they were gone, the bell chiming their exit, two red jackets disappearing into the Honda Civic that pulled away from the curb moments later. Hannah stood there, her hand still half raised in a wave or a stop gesture. She wasn't sure which. Mrs. Chen was definitely not even pretending not to stare now. The elderly couple was whispering and glancing over. The man with the newspaper had lowered it to watch. Slowly, Hannah sat back down. She looked at her phone. The unsent text to Jenna still waited on the screen. He's 20 minutes late. I'm leaving. Her finger hovered over the send button. Daddy doesn't smile much anymore. Not real smiles. She deleted the text. She ordered another latte, her third of the night, which was probably going to give her insomnia. But at this point, what was one more cup? She pulled out her phone again, but this time she wasn't texting Jenna to bail. She was looking up Eli Parker Architect Maplewood. The search brought up a website for Parker Design and Architecture. The homepage featured a photo of a modern library with clean lines and walls of windows that seemed to bring the outside in. Community-centered design, the tagline read, building spaces where life happens. She clicked on the About page and found a photo of him. Eli Parker was handsome in that understated way that suggested he'd never thought much about his appearance. Dark hair that looked like it might curl if he let it grow longer. Strong jawline. Eyes that were, she zoomed in on the photo, the exact same shade of green as his daughter's. He was smiling in the picture, but Rose was right. It didn't quite reach his eyes. There was something guarded about it, something that said this smile was for the camera, not from the heart. The bio was brief. Eli Parker founded Parker Design and Architecture in 2019 with a mission to create public spaces that serve communities. He specializes in libraries, community centers, and educational buildings. Eli holds a master's degree from Cornell University and lives in Maplewood with his two daughters. No mention of a wife, no mention of being widowed, just lives with his two daughters, like that was the whole story. But Hannah knew there was more. Jenna had said he'd been through something hard, and those girls, those beautiful, determined, worried little girls, they'd said, Daddy doesn't smile much anymore. Hannah took a sip of her fresh latte and found herself thinking about second chances, about how she'd almost walked out, about how close she'd come to missing this. At 8:15, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Eli Parker. I am so incredibly sorry I'm late. Emergency at the work site. Please tell me you're still there. If not, I completely understand, but I'd really like to try again if you're willing. Hannah stared at the text. Her thumbs moved over the keyboard. Still here. Mrs. Chen makes a good latte. Take your time. The response came within seconds. Thank you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And I promise I have a good explanation. Actually, I have no idea what my explanation is going to be, but I'll figure it out before I get there. Hannah laughed out loud, making Mrs. Chen look up with a knowing smile. She texted back, Honesty is good. See you soon. She set her phone down and looked out the window at Maple Avenue. The streetlights were on now, casting warm pools of light on the sidewalk. People walked by bundled in scarves and winter coats, their breath making small clouds in the October air. Somewhere out there, a man she'd never met was driving toward this coffee shop. Probably nervous, probably rehearsing what he'd say, probably having no idea that his daughters had already been here, had already vouched for him, had already stolen a piece of Hannah's heart with their fierce love for their father. At 8:33, 3 minutes later than promised, the bell above the door chimed again. This time, it was him. Eli Parker looked exactly like his photo, and nothing like it at all. The photo had been professional, posed, controlled. The man who walked into the coffee shop was slightly disheveled, His dark hair mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. His shirt, a blue button-down that his daughters would probably confirm was the right choice, was clean but wrinkled in that way that suggested a long day. He had a spot of what might have been concrete dust on his shoulder, and his eyes, when they found Hannah and she gave a small wave, flooded with relief so profound it was almost painful to see. He crossed to her booth in 3 long strides. "Hannah?" "That's me." She smiled up at him. "You must be Eli." "I'm so sorry." The words tumbled out like he'd been holding them back for miles. "The sight. We had a burst pipe, and water was everywhere, and I couldn't just leave the crew to handle it. And then my phone died, and I couldn't even call to tell you I was going to be late. And—" He stopped, taking a breath. "I'm making a terrible first impression." "Actually," Hannah said, gesturing to the seat across from her, "you're making a better impression than you think." He sat down slowly like he was afraid she might change her mind and bolt. "I'm not sure how that's possible, but I'll take it." Mrs. Chen appeared at their table with impeccable timing, a fresh cup of coffee in her hand. "For you," she said to Eli with a warm smile. "On the house. You look like you need it." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen." He wrapped his hands around the cup like it was a lifeline. After she left, Hannah studied him for a moment. He looked tired, yes, but there was something else, an anxiety in the set of his shoulders, a wariness in his eyes that spoke of someone who'd been disappointed before and was bracing for it to happen again. "So," she said, deciding to take mercy on him, "tell me about your day." He laughed, a short, surprised sound. "My day? Where do I even start?" "Start anywhere." And he did. He told her about the library project he was working on, how it was his biggest commission yet, how he wanted it to be perfect because he believed libraries were the heart of communities. He told her about the pipe that had burst, how he'd waded through 2 inches of water in his work boots, which are still in my truck, by the way. I had to change into my regular shoes, trying to redirect the water while his crew called the emergency plumber. He told her about his phone dying at the worst possible moment, about borrowing his foreman's phone to text her, about driving 15 miles over the speed limit to get here because he was so sure she'd be gone. "But you weren't," he said, his green eyes meeting hers with something that looked like wonder. "You stayed." "I had some encouragement," Hannah said carefully. His brow furrowed. Encouragement? This was it. The moment where she had to decide whether to tell him that his daughters had staged a covert operation in this very coffee shop 30 minutes ago. Would he be embarrassed, angry, worried? But those girls had traveled all this way, well, 15 minutes, but still, to save their father's date. They deserved credit for their efforts. "Eli," Hannah said slowly, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to not panic." The wariness came back into his eyes immediately. "Okay, now I'm definitely panicking. About 45 minutes ago, I was sitting in this booth, thinking about leaving. You were late, I was disappointed, and I was about to text my friend Jenna and tell her that her matchmaking skills needed work." He winced. "Hannah," she held up a hand. But then the door opened and 2 girls walked in. 2 identical 6-year-old girls in red jackets who marched up to my table and asked if I was Miss Hannah. The color drained from Eli's face. "What?" "They introduced themselves as Lily and Rose. They told me their father was sorry he was late. They told me about the emergency at work and that you'd tried on 4 shirts this morning, and that you'd circled today on the calendar with a blue marker and drawn a smiley face." Eli had gone completely still, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. "They were here?" "For about 5 minutes. They were with your babysitter, Miss Jennifer. She waited in the car. The girls just wanted to make sure I didn't leave. They wanted me to know that you didn't forget, that you were just late, and that I should definitely stay." He set the cup down slowly, carefully, like he was afraid his hands might not be steady. "I'm going to kill them," he said faintly. "No, first I'm going to hug them until they can't breathe, and then I'm going to kill them." Hannah laughed. "They were amazing, Eli. They were sweet and funny and so determined to save your date. Rose told me you don't smile real smiles anymore, and I have to say, it kind of broke my heart." His eyes snapped to hers, and for a moment she saw something raw there, something unguarded. Then he looked down at his coffee, his jaw working. "They said that?" "They did. And they also interrogated me about whether I like kids and Chinese food, though I'm not sure what the Chinese food question was about. A laugh escaped him, surprising them both. That's because our emergency dinner is always Chinese takeout. When I have a long day and don't have time to cook, we order from Golden Dragon, and we eat it straight out of the containers while the girls tell me about their day. That sounds perfect. It's chaos, he said. But he was smiling now, a real smile, and Rose was right. It transformed his entire face. They fight over who gets the last spring roll, and someone always spills soy sauce on something important, and fortune cookies end up crushed on the floor, and it's... He trailed off, his smile softening into something tender. It's my favorite part of most days. Hannah felt something warm bloom in her chest. This man, this worried, disheveled, late for his first date and who knows how long man, loved his daughters with a fierceness that was palpable. "Tell me about them," she said. And he did. For the next hour, they sat in that booth and talked. Eli told her about Lily, who wanted to be a scientist or an astronaut or possibly a chef. It changes weekly, and who could spend hours building elaborate structures out of blocks and then destroying them with the same enthusiasm. He told her about Rose, who was quieter but no less determined, who loved to draw and could lose herself in art projects for entire afternoons, who worried about things in a way that made Eli's heart ache because she was too young to carry such worry. He told her about being a single father, about the learning curve that had been more like a vertical cliff. "I didn't know how to do pigtails," he said with a self-deprecating laugh. "I had to YouTube it. Do you know how many videos there are on doing little girls' hair? Thousands. I watched approximately all of them." "And?" Hannah prompted. "And I can now do a basic ponytail, braids if I have enough time and patience, and something the girls call the twisty thing that I think I'm making up as I go. But hey, they haven't complained yet, so I must be doing something right." Hannah found herself leaning forward, chin in her hand, completely captivated. There was something about the way he talked about his daughters, with humor but also with such profound love, that made her want to know everything. "What about you?" he asked finally, turning the conversation. "Jenna said you're a veterinarian." "I am. I took over Dr. Harrison's practice about 3 years ago. It's a small clinic, mostly dogs and cats, the occasional rabbit or guinea pig. I love it." "Why veterinary medicine?" "I've always loved animals, always felt more comfortable with them than with people, honestly." She paused, wondering how much to share. But he'd been so honest with her, so open. It felt right to reciprocate. "My ex-husband used to say I cared more about my patients than I cared about him." Eli's expression shifted, became careful. "Is that why he's your ex-husband?" "One of the reasons. The main reason is that he wasn't ready to be married, but he didn't figure that out until 5 years in. He left while I was at work one day, just packed his stuff and left a note." She said it matter-of-factly, but she could hear the old hurt underneath. "I'm sorry," Eli said quietly. "That must have been devastating." "It was, but I'm better now. I have Bear, that's my dog, a German Shepherd mix I rescued about a year ago. I have my practice. I have good friends, even if Jenna does occasionally set me up on blind dates that start with the guy being 45 minutes late." She said it with a smile to let him know she was teasing, and was rewarded with another one of those real smiles. "In my defense," he said, "it was only 35 minutes if you don't count the time before 7:30. "Oh, so we're going with technicalities?" "I'm going with whatever makes me look less terrible." They laughed together, and Hannah realized with a start that she was enjoying herself. More than enjoying herself, she was happy. When was the last time she'd felt this kind of easy connection with someone? This sense that she could say anything, be anyone, and it would be okay. "Can I ask you something?" Eli said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "Of course." "Why did you stay? I mean, beyond my daughter's covert operation, you didn't know they were going to show up, so why were you still here at 8:30? Hannah considered the question. "Honestly, I don't know. I was about to leave. I had the text typed out to my friend, but then your daughters walked in, and they looked at me like I was important, like this mattered. And Rose said that thing about you not smiling real smiles anymore, and I couldn't leave after that." Eli was quiet for a moment. "They're not wrong about the smiling thing. Jenna said you'd been through something hard." She's not wrong about that either. He took a breath, and Hannah could see him deciding, weighing how much to share. My wife, their mother, died 2 years ago. Brain aneurysm. She was healthy one day, gone the next. We didn't even get to say goodbye. Oh, Eli. Hannah reached across the table without thinking, covering his hand with hers. I'm so sorry. He looked down at their joined hands, and she started to pull away, worried she'd overstepped, but he turned his hand over and held on to hers. Thank you. It's been the hardest thing I've ever been through, and watching the girls go through it, watching them try to understand why Mommy wasn't coming home, knowing I couldn't fix it or make it better, his voice cracked. I'd give anything to take that pain away from them. They're lucky to have you, Hannah said softly. It's clear how much you love them. They're the only reason I'm still standing, he admitted. There were days, especially in the beginning, when I didn't think I could do it, but they needed me. They needed breakfast and bedtime stories and help with homework, and someone to hold them when they cried. So I figured it out. I learned to do hair and pack lunches and have tea parties and all the things Sarah used to do. Sarah, Hannah repeated gently. She would have loved tonight, he said with a sad smile. Not the being late part or the pipe bursting part, but the fact that our daughters hijacked my first date in 2 years. She would have thought that was the funniest thing ever. Tell me about her. And he did. He told her about meeting Sarah in college, about how she'd been studying early childhood education and would light up talking about teaching methods and child development. He told her about their wedding, small, just family and close friends in her parents' backyard, and about the joy of finding out they were having twins. Sarah cried for an hour, happy tears, saying she couldn't believe we were getting 2 babies at once. But he told her about their life together, the ordinary and the extraordinary, painting a picture of a marriage that had been real and imperfect and deeply loving. I'm not trying to make her into a saint, he said. She wasn't perfect. She left dishes in the sink, and she was always late, and she couldn't resist adopting every stray cat that crossed our path. But she was my person, you know, my best friend. I know, Hannah said, and she did. She understood that kind of loss, even if hers had been different. Loss was loss, whether someone died or just decided to leave. They talked until Mrs. Chen came to their table, apologetic but firm. I'm so sorry, but we're closing soon. Hannah looked around, startled to see that the coffee shop was empty except for them. The elderly couple was gone. The students had packed up their laptops. The man with the newspaper had disappeared. It was just her and Eli and Mrs. Chen wiping down tables. What time is it? Eli asked, pulling out his phone. 10:15, Mrs. Chen said with a knowing smile. We've been here for almost 3 hours, Hannah said, amazed. 2 hours and 45 minutes if we're being technical, Eli corrected, and they both laughed. Outside, the October night had turned cold. Hannah pulled her jacket tighter as they stood on the sidewalk, the coffee shop lights dimming behind them as Mrs. Chen locked up. Thank you, Eli said, for staying, for listening, for not running screaming when my daughters showed up uninvited. Thank you for coming, even if you were 17 minutes late. 35, he corrected with a grin. We're sticking with 17. It sounds more forgivable. They stood there for a moment, neither wanting to end the evening, both knowing it had to end eventually. Hannah's car was parked on the street 3 spaces down. Eli's truck was around the corner. I should get home, he said reluctantly. The girls are probably watching the clock, waiting for me to come back and tell them what happened. They're going to want every detail. Tell them they're excellent matchmakers. I'll tell them they're grounded for leaving the house without permission, and then I'll tell them they're brilliant. Hannah laughed. Can I ask you something before you go? Anything. Would you like to do this again? On purpose this time, with actual plans and no burst pipes or covert operations? The smile that spread across Eli's face was worth every minute she'd waited in that coffee shop. I would love that. How do you feel about Saturday? Saturday works. Fair warning, the girls have been talking about pancakes all week. Apparently they told me I need to make my famous butterfly pancakes for someone special. I didn't know who they meant at the time, but now I'm thinking they had this whole thing planned. Butterfly pancakes? Don't ask. It's a thing we do. But if butterfly pancakes for breakfast sounds terrible, we can definitely do something else. Hannah thought about those two little girls in their red jackets, about the determination in their eyes, and the love in their voices when they talked about their father. She thought about Eli's hands wrapped around his coffee cup, about the way he'd talked about his daughters and his late wife with such tenderness. She thought about second chances and new beginnings, and how sometimes the best things come 17 minutes late. Butterfly pancakes sound perfect, she said. Eli's smile could have lit up the entire street. Yeah? Yeah, what time should I come over? Is 9 too early? 9 is great. They exchanged numbers, actual numbers this time, not crisis texts sent from a foreman's phone. They stood there for another moment, neither quite ready to leave. Until finally Eli said, I should really go. Before I do something impulsive like ask if you want to come have coffee right now, except we just had coffee, so that would be weird. Extremely weird, Hannah agreed, even though part of her wanted to say yes. Saturday, he said, backing toward his truck. Saturday, she confirmed. She watched him go, watched him climb into his pickup truck and wave before pulling out onto Maple Avenue. Then she got in her own car and sat there for a moment, processing everything that had happened. Her phone buzzed. Jenna. Well? How did it go? Did he show up? Are you okay? Hannah smiled and typed back. He showed up, and Jenna, thank you for seeing something I couldn't see yet. Jenna's response came immediately. OMG, tell me everything. Hannah texted back. Tomorrow. It's late, and I need to go home and process the fact that I might have just had the best first date of my life. Hannah, Elizabeth Lewis, you cannot leave me hanging like this. Watch me. Love you. Talk tomorrow. She drove home through the quiet streets of Maplewood, past houses with lit windows and families inside, past the park where children played during the day, past the grocery store that was closed for the night. Bear was waiting when she got home, his tail wagging with the enthusiasm only dogs can manage, and she sat on the floor and let him lick her face while she told him about her evening. 2 little girls showed up, Bear, she said, scratching behind his ears. 2 perfect little girls who loved their dad so much they tracked down his date to make sure I didn't leave. And then their dad showed up, and he was kind and funny and honest. And Bear, I think I might be in trouble here. The good kind of trouble, but still. Trouble. Bear woofed softly, which she chose to interpret as approval. That night she lay in bed thinking about green eyes. 3 pairs of them, all the same striking shade. She thought about butterfly pancakes and blue markers and smiley faces on calendars. She thought about a man who'd learned to do his daughter's hair from YouTube and who talked about his late wife with love instead of bitterness. She thought about second chances and new beginnings and how sometimes love doesn't arrive on time. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late. And sometimes she thought, as she finally drifted off to sleep, that makes it all the more worth waiting for. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in the kind of golden autumn light that made everything look like a painting. Hannah woke up at 6:30, which was ridiculous considering she didn't need to be at Eli's house until 9. But her body had apparently decided that sleep was no longer necessary when there were butterfly pancakes and twin matchmakers waiting in her immediate future. She lay in bed for exactly 4 minutes before giving up on the pretense of rest. Bear lifted his head from his dog bed in the corner, gave her a look that clearly said, "It's too early for this," and went back to sleep. Traitor. In the shower, Hannah tried not to think about the fact that she was about to have breakfast with a man she'd met exactly once, and his 2 daughters who'd already decided she was perfect for their father. No pressure, just a casual Saturday morning meal with a ready-made family who were either going to love her or decide she wasn't good enough for their dad. Totally normal. Completely fine. She was absolutely not spiraling. By 7:15, she'd changed outfits 3 times. Too formal, too casual, too much like she was trying too hard. She finally settled on dark jeans and a soft green sweater that Jenna had once said made her eyes look like the ocean, which felt like the right amount of effort without being obvious about it. By 7:45, she was pacing her living room while Bear watched with the patient resignation of someone who'd seen this routine before. "I'm being ridiculous," she told him. Bear yawned. "Thanks for the support." Her phone buzzed at 8:15. Eli. "Fair warning, The girls have been awake since 6 a.m. asking when you're coming. If you arrive early, I promise no one will complain. If you arrive late, there might be a small riot. No pressure." Hannah laughed, the tension in her chest loosening a little. "Hannah, I'll be there at 9. Tell the girls I'm bringing a surprise." She hadn't been planning to bring anything, but the text had popped out before she could think about it. Now she had 45 minutes to come up with a surprise that would impress two 6-year-old girls who'd already decided she was worth saving their father's date for. 20 minutes later, she pulled into the parking lot of Maplewood's only toy store, a locally owned place called Wonder and Whimsy that somehow managed to compete with the big box stores by sheer force of charm and carefully curated inventory. The owner, Mr. Rodriguez, looked up from his newspaper when the bell chimed. "Hannah, good morning. What brings you in so early?" "Emergency toy shopping," she said, then realized how that sounded. Not an emergency, a good emergency. I think, I hope. Mr. Rodriguez smiled knowingly. He was in his 70s, had owned this shop for 40 years, and had an almost supernatural ability to match the right toy with the right child. "Tell me about these children." Twin girls, 6 years old, smart, creative, determined. One wants to be a scientist, astronaut, chef. The other loves to draw. And they're... She paused, trying to find the right words. "They're special. Their mom passed away 2 years ago, and they've taken it upon themselves to make sure their dad is happy again." Mr. Rodriguez's expression softened. "The Parker girls. I know them. Sweet children, always so polite." He set down his newspaper and stood up. "Come with me." He led her through aisles packed with wooden trains and stuffed animals and board games, past the dress-up corner and the science kits, to a display in the back corner. "For Lily," he said, pulling down a kit labeled Junior Astronaut, Build Your Own Solar System. She was in here 3 weeks ago with her father, and she stood in front of this for 10 minutes before her sister dragged her away. "Perfect," Hannah said. "And for Rose." He moved to the next shelf and selected a set of watercolor paints with 24 colors and 3 different brush sizes. She needs proper materials. The washable ones they give children are fine, but she's ready for real paints. Hannah felt her throat tighten. "You remember what they like?" "I remember every child who comes into my store," Mr. Rodriguez said simply. "It's my job to pay attention." 10 minutes later, Hannah was back in her car with 2 carefully wrapped gifts and the strange sensation that the universe was conspiring to make this day go well. She drove through Maplewood's residential streets, following the GPS directions to an address on Maple Ridge Drive, which turned out to be a quiet neighborhood of older homes with big yards and established trees. Eli's house was a blue craftsman style, with white trim and a wide front porch that looked like it was made for summer evenings and lemonade. The yard was well kept, but not obsessively so. There were fallen leaves scattered across the grass, a tire swing hanging from an old oak tree, and chalk drawings covering the driveway in explosions of color. Hannah parked behind Eli's pickup truck and took a breath. Through the front window, she could see movement inside, shadows passing back and forth. The sound of voices, though she couldn't make out words. She was reaching for the gifts in her passenger seat when the front door flew open and 2 red blurs came racing down the porch steps. "She's here! She's here! Miss Hannah's here!" Lily and Rose reached her car before she'd even fully gotten out, both talking at once, their words tumbling over each other in an avalanche of enthusiasm. "Told Daddy you'd come early. Been watching the window for 30 minutes. Made you a picture. Put on my best dress. Girls." Eli appeared in his doorway, wearing an apron that said "Kiss the Cook," and had what looked like pancake batter on one shoulder. Let her breathe. But he was smiling, that real smile Hannah had seen in the coffee shop, and when his eyes met hers over his daughter's heads, something warm passed between them. A shared understanding, a moment of, "Can you believe this is happening?" "Hi," Hannah said, managing to extract herself from the car with both gifts intact. "Hi," Eli replied. "I see you've been ambushed." "Best kind of ambush," she held up the wrapped packages. "I brought something for the girls, if that's okay." "You didn't have to do that," Eli started, but Lily was already reaching for the packages with barely contained excitement. "Can we open them now, please? Pretty please?" "Inside," Eli said firmly, "and after we say good morning properly. Remember your manners." Both girls straightened up immediately, and Hannah had to suppress a smile at the sudden transformation from wild enthusiasm to careful politeness. "Good morning, Miss Hannah," they chorused in unison. "Good morning, Lily. Good morning, Rose." Hannah crouched down to their level. "I heard someone's been waiting very patiently for butterfly pancakes?" "So patiently," Rose said solemnly. "I've been patient for at least 1,000,000 hours." 2 hours, Eli corrected, "since 6 a.m., which is when they woke up and came into my room to ask if it was time yet." "Time is relative," Lily announced with the confidence of someone who'd recently learned a new phrase and was determined to use it. "Did you learn that from your science books?" Hannah asked. "From a cartoon about space," Lily admitted. "But it sounds smart." The house was exactly what Hannah had expected, and nothing like it at all. The outside was neat and orderly, but the inside was gloriously lived in. Shoes piled by the door, tiny sneakers next to work boots, backpacks hanging on hooks that were definitely too high for the girls to reach, a living room that had been taken over by a blanket fort that sprawled from couch to coffee table to armchair, drawings covering the refrigerator held up with magnets shaped like zoo animals, a cat, which Eli definitely hadn't mentioned, sleeping in a patch of sunlight on the windowsill. "That's Marmalade," Rose said, following Hannah's gaze. "We got her from the shelter. Daddy said we couldn't have a pet, but then we went to look at the animals, and Marmalade purred when we petted her, and Daddy said we could bring her home." "I'm a pushover," Eli said from the kitchen. "It's pathetic." "You're a good dad," Hannah said, and watched him duck his head, a flush creeping up his neck. The girls dragged her to the kitchen table, which had already been set with mismatched plates, 2 with cartoon princesses, 1 with a superhero, 1 plain white. There was orange juice in plastic cups, napkins folded into somewhat lumpy triangles that were clearly the work of small hands trying very hard, and a small vase of flowers that looked like they'd been picked from the garden that morning. "We did the table ourselves," Lily announced proudly. "It's beautiful," Hannah said, and meant it. "You can sit here." Rose pulled out a chair. "This is the special guest spot. It's where Grandma sits when she visits." Hannah sat, trying not to think too hard about being equated with Grandma in terms of importance. Through the kitchen doorway, she could see Eli at the stove, pouring batter onto a griddle, his movements practiced and efficient. "Okay," Lily said, climbing into the chair across from Hannah with the gravity of someone about to conduct a very important interview. "Before Daddy comes back, we need to ask you some questions." "Lily," Eli called from the kitchen. "Important questions," Lily called back. Then to Hannah, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "We have a list." Rose pulled a piece of paper from her pocket and unfolded it carefully. Hannah caught a glimpse of crayon-written words in careful 6-year-old handwriting. "First question," Rose said, completely serious. "What's your favorite color?" "Green," Hannah answered, "like your eyes." Both girls beamed. "Second question, do you like cats?" "I love cats, and dogs, and most animals, actually. It's kind of my job." "Third question," Lily took over, leaning forward. "If you had to pick between chocolate and vanilla ice cream for the rest of your life, which one?" "That's a tough one," Hannah said, pretending to think hard. "Can I say swirl?" The girls looked at each other, then back at Hannah. "That's a good answer," Lily said approvingly. "It means you're a problem solver." "Fourth question," Rose continued, "can you do braids, good ones?" "I can. I practiced on all my nieces." "How many nieces do you have?" 17 nieces and nephews total. 8 girls, 9 boys. Both girls' eyes went wide. "That's so many." "It is," Hannah agreed. "My ex-husband came from a very big family." "What's an ex-husband?" Lily asked. Hannah glanced toward the kitchen, where Eli had gone very still at the stove. "It means someone you used to be married to but aren't anymore." "Like divorce?" Rose asked quietly. "Yes, like that." "Our friend Emma's parents are divorced," Lily said matter-of-factly. "She has 2 houses now. She says it's confusing." "I bet it is," Hannah said gently. "Our mommy didn't divorce Daddy," Rose said, her voice small. "She died." The kitchen had gone completely silent. Hannah could feel Eli listening, could sense his tension from 2 rooms away. She chose her words carefully. I know. Your daddy told me. I'm very sorry. I bet you miss her a lot. Every day, Rose whispered. Do you miss your ex-husband? Lily asked, and there was something knowing in her green eyes, something that suggested she was asking a deeper question than it seemed. Not anymore, Hannah said honestly. For a while I did, but now I'm just grateful for the things I learned. What did you learn? That I'm stronger than I thought, that I can be happy by myself, and that when the right person comes along. She paused, her eyes flicking to the kitchen doorway where Eli had appeared, spatula in hand, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. They won't make you feel like you have to be someone different. They'll like you exactly as you are. The girls looked at each other, another one of those silent twin communications passing between them. Then Lily folded up the list and stuffed it back in her pocket. You passed, she announced. There were more questions on that list, Eli said, moving to the table with a platter of pancakes. I saw at least 10 things written down. We decided we didn't need the rest, Rose said simply. The butterfly pancakes were exactly what they sounded like. Pancakes shaped into butterflies, with strawberry slices for the body and blueberries marking the wing patterns. They were slightly lopsided and completely charming, and the girls' faces lit up when Eli set the platter on the table. Daddy makes the best butterflies, Rose said. Mom taught me, Eli said quietly, sliding into the last empty chair. She was the artist. I'm just following her template. For a moment, the table was quiet. Hannah could feel the weight of absence, the space where someone should be sitting. But then Lily reached for the syrup and accidentally knocked over her juice, and Rose yelped and grabbed napkins, and suddenly the moment was broken by the beautiful chaos of breakfast with small children. They ate and talked and laughed, and Hannah felt something in her chest crack open. This was what she'd been missing. This noise and warmth and connection. These sticky fingers and silly jokes and questions that came out of nowhere. Miss Hannah, Rose said around a mouthful of pancake, can you tell us about your job? So Hannah told them about the clinic, about the dogs that came in for checkups, and the cats that tried to escape their carriers, and the time she'd had to examine a pet rabbit that had eaten through a phone charger. He was fine, just very embarrassed. She told them about Bear, about how she'd found him at a shelter, and how he'd been scared of everything at first, but now thought he owned the place. Can we meet Bear? Lily asked immediately. Lily, Eli warned. If your dad says it's okay, absolutely. Can we, Daddy? Please? Eli looked at Hannah, a question in his eyes. She gave a tiny nod. Maybe next weekend, he said, if Miss Hannah doesn't mind. Miss Hannah definitely doesn't mind. After breakfast, while Eli cleared the dishes, despite Hannah's offers to help, you're a guest, you don't do dishes. The girls dragged her to the living room to show her their blanket fort. You have to crawl, Lily instructed. It's not tall enough for standing. Hannah got down on her hands and knees and crawled through the blanket tunnel. Inside, the fort was surprisingly elaborate, with pillows arranged into rooms, a flashlight hanging from the blankets to provide chandelier lighting, and books stacked in one corner to create the library. We live here sometimes, Rose explained, when we want to be alone or when we're sad. It's a very good fort, Hannah said seriously. You built this yourselves? Daddy helped with the tall parts, Lily admitted, but we designed it. They spent the next 20 minutes in the fort, the girls showing Hannah their treasures, a box of seashells from a beach trip 2 summers ago, a collection of smooth rocks they'd found at the park, a notebook full of Rose's drawings. Each item came with a story, and Hannah listened to all of them, watching the way Lily's hands moved when she talked, the way Rose ducked her head when she was proud of something but didn't want to show it. Can we open the presents now? Lily finally asked, unable to contain herself any longer. You remembered those, huh? We've been so patient, Rose insisted. Hannah retrieved the gifts from her car, with both girls trailing behind her like eager puppies. In the living room, they sat cross-legged on the floor, and Hannah handed each of them a wrapped package. This one's for Lily, she said, and this one's for Rose. They tore into the wrapping paper with the enthusiasm of children who'd been practicing good behavior for 2 whole hours and were ready to cut loose. Lily's shriek when she saw the solar system kit could probably be heard 3 houses down. It's the one from the store, the one I wanted. Daddy, look! She held up the box like it was made of pure gold. I see it, baby, Eli said softly. And when Hannah looked over at him, standing in the kitchen doorway with the dish towel over his shoulder, his eyes were suspiciously bright. Rose's reaction was quieter, but no less profound. She opened the watercolor set slowly, reverently, running her fingers over the paint colors. Real paints, she whispered. Not the kid kind. Mr. Rodriguez at Wonder and Whimsy said you were ready for real paints, Hannah said. Mr. Rodriguez remembers me? He said you were an artist who needed proper materials. Rose looked up at Hannah with eyes that were definitely watering. Thank you, she said, and then she launched herself at Hannah in a hug that nearly knocked them both over. A moment later, Lily joined in, and Hannah found herself buried under two 6-year-olds who smelled like maple syrup and strawberry shampoo and pure joy. Girls, Eli said, his voice rough, let Miss Hannah breathe. They pulled back, but not before Lily whispered in her ear, You're definitely the right one. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of activity. Lily wanted to start building her solar system immediately, which meant spreading components across the entire living room floor and consulting the instruction manual with the seriousness of a NASA engineer. Rose wanted to paint, so Eli set her up at the kitchen table with a plastic tablecloth and a cup of water and strict instructions not to paint the cat. Hannah found herself pulled into both projects, helping Lily figure out which planet was which while also mixing colors for Rose and learning that purple was Rose's favorite because it's like sunset and mystery at the same time. Eli moved through the house around them, loading the dishwasher, starting laundry, responding to a work email on his phone, but always circling back to the living room or the kitchen to check on his girls. And every time he passed by, his eyes would find Hannah's, and something would pass between them. A question, maybe, or a hope. Or just the simple acknowledgement that this felt right. At 11:30, Rose declared her painting finished. It was abstract, swirls of purple and blue and pink that somehow captured the feeling of movement and light. It's for you, she said, handing it carefully to Hannah. For me? Because you brought the real paints, and because you stayed when we asked you to. Hannah accepted the painting with hands that weren't quite steady. Rose, this is beautiful, thank you. We should put it on the fridge, Lily called from the living room where she was attempting to glue Saturn's rings at the correct angle. The fridge of honor, Eli said with a smile. That's where only the most important artwork goes. He helped Rose find a magnet, a giraffe, which Rose explained was her favorite animal after butterflies, which weren't really animals but insects, which were still kind of animals if you thought about it. And they hung the painting in a place of pride next to drawings of the family and a handprint craft from school. Looking at it there, among the artifacts of their daily life, Hannah felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just a nice morning. This wasn't just a successful second date. This was something bigger, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Hey, Eli said quietly, appearing beside her while the girls were distracted with their projects. You doing okay? Yeah, she said. I'm good. Really good. Your girls are incredible, Eli. They really like you. He paused, then added in a lower voice, and they're not the only ones. Hannah's heart did something complicated in her chest. I really like them too. All of you. Can I ask you something? Of course. This morning, at breakfast, when they asked about your ex-husband, you said the right person won't make you feel like you have to be someone different. He turned to face her fully, his green eyes serious. Did he? Make you feel like you had to be different? Hannah took a breath. This was the real conversation, the one underneath all the butterfly pancakes and watercolor paintings and solar system models. He did. He wanted me to be less intense, I guess. Less focused on work, less invested in things that weren't him. And for a long time, I tried to be what he wanted. I made myself smaller, quieter, less, and it still wasn't enough. That's not love, Eli said quietly. No, she agreed. It's not. Took me a while to figure that out. Sarah used to say that love meant making space for the whole person, not just the parts that were easy or convenient. He shoved his hands in his pockets, looking suddenly vulnerable. I'm still figuring out how to do that with someone new. how to let someone in without feeling like I'm betraying her memory. But being around you, Hannah, it feels different. It feels like maybe I could figure it out. Daddy! Lily's voice interrupted. Neptune won't stick. I need help. Coming. He gave Hannah an apologetic look. Crisis management. Story of my life. Go, she said with a smile. Your astronaut needs you. She watched him cross the living room and crouch beside Lily, examining the Neptune situation with the careful attention of a professional architect consulting on a major project. I think we need more glue, he said seriously, and maybe we should let Jupiter dry before we try to attach the other outer planets. That's so smart, Daddy, Lily said admiringly. At noon, Hannah's phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. So? How's breakfast? Are you still alive? Do I need to come rescue you? Hannah smiled and typed back, Still alive, more than alive. Call you later with details. That's not nearly enough information, but I'll allow it only because I'm assuming you're having a good time. Hannah slipped her phone back in her pocket and looked around the living room. At Lily, carefully placing her planets in order from the sun. At Rose, already starting a second painting, this one with more green and yellow. At Eli, watching his daughters with such profound love that it was almost hard to look at directly. This was what Saturday mornings were supposed to feel like, she thought, full and warm and alive. Miss Hannah, Rose called from the kitchen, can you help me mix the right green? I want it to be forest green, not regular green. Absolutely. They spent the next hour on colors, mixing paints to find exactly the right shades. Rose was particular about her palette, and Hannah found herself completely absorbed in the task of helping this serious 6-year-old create the exact vision in her mind. You're good at this, Rose said at one point. At color mixing? At being here. With us. Rose didn't look up from her painting, but her voice was soft. Some people try too hard. They want us to like them, so they act weird. But you just act like you. Is that a good thing? Hannah asked carefully. It's the best thing. Rose finally looked up, her green eyes, so much like her father's, meeting Hannah's directly. Daddy acts like himself around you, too. He forgets to be sad for a little while. Hannah's throat tightened. Rose, it's okay to make him happy, Rose said quietly. Mommy would want him to be happy. How this child had learned such wisdom at 6 years old, Hannah couldn't imagine. She reached over and tucked a strand of honey-colored hair behind Rose's ear. You're pretty special, you know that? Rose shrugged, but she was smiling. At 1 o'clock, Eli ordered pizza. I was going to cook lunch, but honestly, I'm exhausted from breakfast. And they ate at the kitchen table while the girls chattered about their upcoming school week and the field trip they had planned to the local fire station. Miss Hannah should come, Lily announced suddenly. Lily, Miss Hannah has her own job, Eli said. She can't just take a day off to go to your field trip. But what if she could? Lily turned pleading eyes on Hannah. It's on Thursday. We're going to see the fire trucks and everything. I'll see what I can do, Hannah said diplomatically, even though she was already mentally rearranging her schedule to make it work. After lunch, the girls insisted on showing Hannah the rest of the house. The upstairs hallway was lined with photos, Sarah and Eli on their wedding day, the girls as newborns, family trips to the beach and the mountains, birthday parties and Halloween costumes, and ordinary Tuesday afternoons that someone had thought to capture and preserve. That's Mommy, Rose said unnecessarily, pointing to a photo of a woman with a bright smile and the same honey-colored hair as her daughters. She was holding baby Lily and Rose, one in each arm, and looking at the camera like she'd never been happier in her life. She was beautiful, Hannah said. She smelled like cookies, Lily added, and she sang all the time, even in the grocery store. She sounds wonderful. She was, Eli said from behind them. Hannah hadn't heard him come up the stairs. But she'd also be the first person to tell you that she snored like a freight train and couldn't parallel park to save her life. The girls giggled. She was so bad at parking, Lily confirmed. Their bedroom was exactly what Hannah expected. 2 twin beds with mismatched comforters, toys overflowing from bins, a bookshelf packed with picture books and early readers. But what caught her attention was the treehouse visible through the window, nestled in the big oak tree in the backyard. Can we show Miss Hannah the treehouse? Rose asked. Please? Eli looked at Hannah. Fair warning, the treehouse is special. There are rules. I'm good with rules, Hannah said. They trooped downstairs and out the back door into a yard that was clearly designed for children. A sandbox in one corner, the tire swing she'd seen from the front, a garden bed with a few stubborn fall vegetables still clinging to life. And the treehouse, accessed by wooden slats nailed into the trunk of the oak tree, with a rope railing for safety. The girls scrambled up the ladder with the ease of frequent practice. Eli went next, then turned to help Hannah up. His hand was warm and strong, and when she reached the platform and their faces were suddenly very close, she saw his breath catch. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," she replied. "This is the treehouse," Lily announced unnecessarily from inside the small structure. "Password?" Hannah looked at Eli confused. "They have a password," he explained. "It changes weekly. I never know what it is." "This week, it's butterfly pancakes," Rose said. "Butterfly pancakes," Hannah repeated obediently. "You may enter." The treehouse was small but perfect, with windows cut into the walls, cushions on the floor, and drawings pinned up on every available surface. But what caught Hannah's attention was the framed photo sitting on a small shelf. Sarah, smiling at the camera, her arms around two 3-year-old girls. "Mommy's picture lives here," Rose explained, "so she can be with us when we play." Eli had gone very still beside her. Hannah could feel the weight of this moment, the significance of being brought into this space where Sarah's memory was kept alive and honored. "Thank you for showing me," she said quietly. "This is a very special place." They sat in the treehouse for a while, the girls pointing out their favorite drawings and explaining the complex imaginary games they played up here. Eli was quiet, his shoulder pressed against Hannah's in the small space, and she could feel him processing something, working through emotions she couldn't quite name. When the girls finally got distracted by a bird landing on a nearby branch and scrambled to the windows to watch it, Eli leaned close to Hannah's ear and whispered, "I built this right after Sarah died. I didn't know what else to do with all the feelings, so I built something for them. Something that would last." "You gave them a sanctuary," Hannah whispered back. "I gave them a place where their mom could still exist." His voice cracked slightly. "I didn't want them to forget her." "They won't," Hannah said with certainty. "Not with you keeping her alive in stories and pictures and places like this." He turned to look at her, and in the dappled light filtering through the treehouse windows, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You get it," he said. "Most people, they want me to move on, to let go, to pack her memory away like it's something to be finished with. But you understand that she's always going to be part of this family. That loving someone new doesn't mean forgetting someone old." Hannah reached for his hand and laced their fingers together. "She was your first great love. She gave you these incredible daughters. Of course, she'll always be part of your family, and anyone worth being with will understand that." "Miss Hannah?" Lily turned from the window. "Do you want to see the secret compartment?" The afternoon stretched into evening before Hannah realized how much time had passed. She'd seen the secret compartment, a loose floorboard where the girls hid treasures. She'd played board games that devolved into chaos when someone changed the rules midway through. She'd helped fold laundry while Eli started dinner. Real dinner this time, he insisted, not just takeout. And the girls regaled her with stories about their teacher and their friends, and the boy in their class who ate glue. At 6:30, as the sun was starting to set and the kitchen smelled like garlic and tomatoes from the pasta Eli was making, Hannah realized she should probably go home. She had work tomorrow. She needed to feed Bear. This day, as perfect as it had been, needed to end eventually. But when she mentioned leaving, both girls' faces fell so dramatically that she almost laughed. "You can't go yet," Lily protested. "We didn't show you our dance." "Dance? We've been practicing," Rose said. "It's to our favorite song. We were going to show you after dinner." Hannah looked at Eli, who shrugged with a smile. "They've been working on it all week. Apparently it was part of today's plan." "Then I definitely need to see it," Hannah said. So she stayed for dinner, sitting at the mismatched plate table while the girls competed to tell the best stories, and Eli served pasta with a sauce he admitted he'd learned to make from YouTube. "I'm teaching myself to cook one recipe at a time." And for dessert, there was ice cream with chocolate sauce that somehow ended up everywhere except in the bowls. After dinner, while Eli cleaned up, he'd refused Hannah's help twice now, insisting she was still a guest. The girls dragged her to the living room. "You have to sit there," Lily instructed, pointing to the couch. "That's the audience spot." "And you have to clap at the end," Rose added, "even if we mess up." "I promise." The performance was 3 minutes of pure, unfiltered joy. The girls had choreographed a dance to some pop song Hannah vaguely recognized, complete with spins and jumps and synchronized arm movements that were mostly synchronized. They were completely unself-conscious, throwing themselves into the performance with total commitment, and halfway through, Hannah felt tears prickling her eyes. When had she last felt this kind of uncomplicated happiness? When had she last been in a space where people were just fully, authentically themselves, without apology or pretense? She clapped until her hands hurt when they finished, and the girls took elaborate bows before collapsing on the couch beside her, breathless and grinning. "That was incredible," Hannah said. "You two are so talented." "We know," Lily said matter-of-factly, which made Hannah laugh. Eli appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed, watching the three of them on the couch. The look on his face was soft and wondering, like he couldn't quite believe this scene was happening in his living room. "Okay, dancers," he said finally, "it's almost time for baths." The groan that went up from both girls was impressive in its synchronization. "But Miss Hannah just got here," Lily protested. "Miss Hannah has been here for 9 hours," Eli pointed out, "and she probably needs to get home to Bear." Bear. Right. Her dog, who was probably wondering if she'd been kidnapped. Hannah stood up reluctantly. "Your dad's right. I should get going." "Will you come back?" Rose asked, her voice small. "Of course I will." "When?" Hannah looked at Eli, raising her eyebrows in question. He smiled, that real smile that transformed his whole face. "How about next weekend? I could make dinner. A real dinner, not just pancakes and pizza." "I'd like that." "And you could bring Bear," Lily added excitedly. "We want to meet him." "Then I'll definitely bring Bear." The girls hugged her goodbye with the kind of ferocity that suggested they thought she might not actually come back if they didn't hold on tight enough. Hannah hugged them back, breathing in their little girl smell of shampoo and paint and sunshine. Eli walked her to her car while the girls watched from the front window, their faces pressed against the glass. "Thank you," he said when they reached her car, "for today, for being so good with them, for—" He trailed off, then started again. "For understanding about Sarah, about the treehouse and the pictures and all of it. Most people don't understand." "Most people haven't loved and lost," Hannah said gently. "I get it. Not in the same way, but I get it." "I had a really good day," Eli said, and there was something vulnerable in his voice that made Hannah's heart ache. "Me too." They stood there for a moment, close enough that Hannah could see the flecks of darker green in his eyes, could count the faint freckles across his nose. Close enough that if one of them leaned forward just a little, they could— A tap on the window made them both jump. The girls were pointing at them and giggling. Eli groaned. "I'm so sorry. They have no sense of boundaries." "They're 6, Hannah said with a laugh. "They're not supposed to have boundaries." "Rain check on that kiss?" Eli asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Definitely a rain check." She drove home with Rose's painting carefully secured in her passenger seat and a feeling in her chest that she couldn't quite name but didn't want to let go of. When she got home, Bear was waiting at the door with a look that clearly communicated betrayal at being left alone all day. I know, she said, crouching to let him lick her face. "But Bear, I have to tell you about today." And she did, talking to her dog while she filled his bowl and settled on the couch with a cup of tea, processing everything that had happened. The butterfly pancakes and the watercolor painting and the solar system that was still probably spread across Eli's living room floor. The treehouse and the password and the photo of Sarah that lived in a place of honor. The girls with their green eyes and their fierce love for their father. And Eli himself, kind and honest and still healing but willing to try. Her phone buzzed. Eli. "The girls are asking if you made it home okay. Also asking if next weekend can be sooner. Also, Rose wants to know if Bear likes blueberries. I have no idea why." Hannah smiled and typed back, Made it home safe. Tell them next weekend can't come soon enough. And yes, Bear loves blueberries. Eli. They're satisfied with this answer. They also made me promise to tell you that today was the best Saturday ever. Hannah, tell them it was my best Saturday ever too. Eli, even with the interrogation and the hijacked date and my daughters being completely overwhelming? Hannah, especially because of all that. There was a pause and then, I'm really glad you came, Hannah, and I'm really glad you stayed. Both times. Hannah set her phone down and looked at Bear, who was watching her with knowing eyes. I think we're in trouble, she told him. The good kind of trouble. The kind that changes everything. Bear woofed softly, which she chose to take as approval, and Hannah let herself imagine next weekend. More time with three people who were quickly becoming more than just a nice family she'd met through a friend. More time with a man whose smile was still learning to be real again. More time with two little girls who decided she was worth saving their father's date for. Outside her window, the autumn evening settled into night, and somewhere across town, in a blue craftsman house with a tree house in the backyard, two 6-year-old matchmakers were probably already planning next weekend's agenda. And Hannah Lewis, who'd almost walked out of a coffee shop 17 minutes into a blind date, found herself looking forward to every single moment of whatever came next. The week that followed moved with the strange duality of time that Hannah had almost forgotten existed. Days at the clinic passed in their usual blur of appointments and emergencies, but the evenings stretched long and sweet, filled with text messages that made her smile at her phone like a teenager. Eli would send pictures of the girls' latest projects. Lily's solar system now hanging from her bedroom ceiling with fishing line. Rose's paintings multiplying across every available surface. The girls would hijack his phone to send voice messages, their excited chatter overlapping as they told Hannah about their day, about the fire station field trip she'd promised to attend, about how they were teaching Marmalade to do tricks, even though cats don't really do tricks, Miss Hannah, but they were going to be the first. On Tuesday evening, Hannah was reviewing lab results for a golden retriever with a possible thyroid condition when her phone lit up with a call. Eli's name on the screen made her heart do something complicated. Hey, she answered, unable to keep the smile out of her voice. Hey, yourself? There was noise in the background, the sound of running water and childish laughter. Sorry, I'm on dish duty. The girls wanted me to call because they have an important question that apparently couldn't wait until tomorrow. I'm listening. Lily, Rose, come here and ask Miss Hannah your question. A pause, then Eli's voice dropped lower. Fair warning, I have no idea what this is about. They've been whispering in the treehouse all afternoon. There was a scuffling sound, then Lily's voice, slightly breathless with excitement. Miss Hannah, we need to know something really important. Okay, shoot. What's Bear's favorite game? Hannah laughed. His favorite game is probably fetch, but he also really likes this thing we do where I hide treats around the house and he has to find them. That's perfect. Rose's voice chimed in, and Hannah could picture them pressed close to the phone, both trying to hear. Because we're making him a present for when he comes this weekend. You're making Bear a present. We can't tell you what it is, Lily said seriously. It's a surprise, but we needed to know what he likes. He's going to love whatever you make him, Hannah said, and she meant it. These girls could have made Bear a rock with googly eyes glued on, and he would have cherished it. Okay. We have to go now, Rose announced. Daddy's making that face that means we're taking too long on his phone. I am not making a face, Eli protested in the background. Yes, you are, both girls chorused. Then there was more scuffling, and suddenly Eli was back on the line. Sorry about that. They've been planning this Bear visit like it's a state dinner. It's sweet. It's chaos. But his voice was warm with affection. How was your day? And just like that, they slipped into conversation. Hannah told him about the golden retriever, about the cat who'd somehow gotten her head stuck in a toilet paper roll. Don't ask me how, I still don't understand the physics of it. About the new receptionist who was terrified of birds and had nearly quit when someone brought in a parrot. Eli told her about the library project, how they were finally getting the roof completed, about the contractor who kept calling him at 6 a.m, about his plans for the interior and his hope that the building would become a real community gathering space. They talked for 45 minutes before Eli had to go wrangle his daughters into their bedtime routine. After he hung up, Hannah sat in her quiet house and realized she was still smiling. "This is moving fast," she told Bear, who was lying at her feet with his head on her paws. "Is this too fast? This feels too fast." Bear made a sound that could have been agreement or disagreement, but his tail wagged once, which Hannah chose to interpret as approval. Wednesday brought a complication. Hannah was between appointments, reviewing notes in her office, when Jenna appeared in the doorway with 2 coffees and a determined expression that meant she wasn't leaving without details. "Okay," Jenna said, settling into the chair across from Hannah's desk. "I've been patient. I've given you space. I've accepted your vague text messages and your 'I'll tell you later' responses. But it's been 5 days since the pancake breakfast date, and I need information." Hannah laughed and accepted the coffee. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start at the beginning and don't leave anything out." So Hannah told her about the butterfly pancakes and the interrogation and the gifts from Mr. Rodriguez, about the treehouse with Sarah's picture and the painting Rose had made her that was currently hanging on her refrigerator, about the 9 hours that had felt like both an eternity and an instant, about the feeling she couldn't shake that something significant was happening, something that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. Jenna listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her, her expression cycling through delight and concern, and something that looked almost like worry. "Hannah," she said finally, setting down her coffee, "can I say something that might be hard to hear?" Hannah's stomach tightened. "Of course." "I love that you're happy. I love that you're putting yourself out there again. But this is a ready-made family you're walking into. A man who's still grieving his wife. 2 little girls who are clearly desperate for a mother figure. That's a lot of pressure." "I know," Hannah said quietly. "Do you? Because it sounds like you're already getting attached. It sounds like you're already imagining yourself as part of their family. And if this doesn't work out, you're not just losing Eli. You're losing those girls too." The words hit harder than Hannah expected. She set down her own coffee, suddenly unable to meet Jenna's eyes. "You think I should slow down? I think you should be careful. Your heart is one of the biggest I know, hon. You love with everything you have, and that's beautiful, but it also means you can get hurt really easily." Jenna reached across the desk and took Hannah's hand. "I just want you to protect yourself, to make sure you're not jumping into something because it feels good right now without thinking about what it means long term." "I'm not trying to replace their mother," Hannah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you're not, but do they? Does Eli? Have you talked about what this looks like if it gets serious? About boundaries and expectations and how you navigate being in their lives without overstepping?" Hannah pulled her hand back, feeling defensive and knowing Jenna was probably right, which made it worse. "We've been on 2 dates, Jenna. We're not planning a wedding." "But you're already spending weekends at his house, already getting attached to his kids, already—" Jenna stopped, seeming to reconsider her words. "I'm not trying to rain on your parade. I'm really not. I just know how you are. You dive in head first, and sometimes you forget to check if there's water in the pool." They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Hannah's next appointment was in 10 minutes. She should end this conversation, should thank Jenna for her concern and promise to be careful, and move on with her day. But something in her chest felt heavy, felt like Jenna had poked at a fear Hannah had been trying not to examine too closely. "What if you're wrong?" Hannah asked finally. "What if this is exactly what it feels like, something real and rare and worth the risk?" Jenna's expression softened. "Then I'll be the first person celebrating at your wedding. But Han, you've been hurt before, really hurt, and I just need to know that you're going into this with your eyes open." "My eyes are open," Hannah said with more confidence than she felt. "I know the risks. I know this is complicated. But Jenna, when I'm with them, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I haven't felt that way in a really long time." "Okay," Jenna said after a moment. "Okay. Then I'm behind you 100%. But promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll talk to Eli about expectations and boundaries and what this looks like. Because you're not just dating him, you're dating his whole situation, and everyone needs to be clear about what that means." Hannah nodded slowly. "I promise." After Jenna left, Hannah sat in her office staring at the wall where she'd hung her veterinary degree and a photo of Bear and a child's drawing one of her nephews had made her years ago. Jenna's words circled in her head like birds that wouldn't settle. Was she moving too fast? Was she setting herself up for heartbreak? Was she being naive about the complications of dating a widower with children? Her phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Miss Hannah, I finished another painting. Daddy says it's my best one yet. Can I show you on Saturday?" Hannah's heart squeezed. These girls, these beautiful, open-hearted girls who'd already claimed a piece of her heart. How did you protect yourself from that? How did you hold back when everything in you wanted to dive in completely? She typed back, "I can't wait to see it, Rose. I bet it's amazing." The response came immediately. "It's a picture of all of us. You and Daddy and me and Lily and Bear and Marmalade. We're all in the treehouse." Hannah stared at the text, her eyes stinging. Rose had painted them as a family, had imagined them all together in that sacred space where Sarah's memory lived. And Hannah didn't know if that was beautiful or heartbreaking or both. Thursday morning dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of October day that threatened rain but couldn't quite commit. Hannah had rearranged her morning appointments to make the fire station field trip happen, and now she sat in her car outside Maplewood Elementary School watching families arrive for the buses. She spotted Eli's truck in the parking lot, saw him walking toward the school entrance with a twin on each side, both girls wearing matching red raincoats that made Hannah smile despite the knot of anxiety in her stomach from yesterday's conversation with Jenna. She got out of her car and headed toward them, and the moment the girls spotted her, their faces lit up like she'd hung the moon. "Miss Hannah came. Daddy, Miss Hannah came." They ran to her, both talking at once, and Hannah crouched down to their level, letting their excitement wash over her. Behind them, Eli approached with that soft smile that made her heart skip. "Hey," he said, "you made it. I promised, didn't I?" "You did." His eyes held hers for a moment, something warm passing between them, before Lily tugged on Hannah's sleeve. "You have to ride on our bus. Miss Thompson said parent volunteers can sit anywhere." The field trip was exactly what Hannah needed. The fire station visit was fascinating in the way only 6-year-olds could make something fascinating, with questions ranging from how hot is fire, to do firefighters have to pee in their suits, to can cats really get stuck in trees, or is that just in cartoons? The firefighters were patient and kind, showing the kids the trucks and the gear and letting them try on helmets that swallowed their small heads. Hannah found herself standing next to Eli as they watched the girls pose for photos in oversized firefighter coats. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "They were so excited when I told them you'd be here." "I wanted to come." She paused, then added, "Eli, can we talk? Maybe after this?" Something shifted in his expression. "That sounds serious." "It's not bad. I just think we should have a conversation about some things." "Okay?" He looked uncertain now, a wariness creeping into his eyes. "Should I be worried?" "No," Hannah said quickly. "No, I promise. Just things we should discuss." The rest of the field trip passed in a blur. Hannah tried to focus on the girls, on their joy and curiosity, but she was aware of Eli beside her, aware of the slight tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. She'd worried him. She hadn't meant to, but she had. After the field trip, after the buses dropped them back at school and parents collected their children, Eli suggested they grab coffee while his mother watched the girls for an extra hour. They ended up back at Maple Avenue Coffee Shop, the place where all of this had started, sitting in the same booth where Hannah had waited 17 minutes for a date that changed everything. "So," Eli said, his hands wrapped around his mug, "what did you want to talk about?" Hannah took a breath. "My friend Jenna came to see me yesterday. She's worried that we're moving too fast." Eli's expression closed off slightly. "And are we? Moving too fast?" "I don't know. Maybe. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Not really." Hannah set down her own mug and looked at him directly. "I wanted to talk about what this is, what we're doing, because you're right that I'm not just dating you. I'm dating your whole situation, and I need to know what that means to you." "Hannah, let me finish," she said gently. "Your girls are incredible. They're smart and funny and kind, and I already care about them so much. But I also know that I'm not their mother. I will never be their mother. And I need to know that you're okay with that you're not looking for someone to fill Sarah's shoes, because I can't do that. No one can. Eli was quiet for a long moment, his green eyes studying her face. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Is that what you think? That I'm trying to replace Sarah? I don't know what to think. We haven't talked about it. We've been having this beautiful, easy time together, but we haven't talked about the hard stuff. About what happens if this gets serious. About boundaries with the girls. About how we navigate me being in their lives without... She stopped, searching for the right words. Without me becoming something I can't be. You could never replace Sarah, Eli said quietly. You're nothing like her, and I mean that in the best possible way. Sarah was sunshine and chaos and impulsive decisions. You're thoughtful and steady and careful with hearts. The girls love you because you're you, not because you remind them of their mother. But they want a mother, Eli. I see it in the way they look at me, in the way Rose painted that picture of all of us together. And what happens when they expect more from me than I can give? What happens when this gets hard and complicated and we have to navigate blended family dynamics? And, hey, Eli reached across the table and took her hand. Breathe. Hannah realized she'd been spiraling, words tumbling out faster and faster. She took a breath. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared of hurting them. I'm scared of getting hurt. I'm scared that Jenna's right, and I'm diving in without thinking about the consequences. Do you want to stop? Eli asked. And something in his voice made Hannah's chest ache. Because if this is too much, if you need to step back, I understand. I don't want you to feel pressured or overwhelmed. That's not what I'm saying. Hannah tightened her grip on his hand. I'm not saying I want to stop. I'm saying I want to do this right. I want to be honest about the complications and make sure we're on the same page before we get in any deeper. Eli nodded slowly. Okay, then let's be honest. He took a breath. I'm terrified too. I haven't done this in 2 years. I haven't had to think about introducing someone to my daughters or navigating a new relationship while still honoring my late wife's memory. And yes, the girls love you. Yes, they're already imagining you as part of our family. But Hannah, that's because you fit. Not because you're filling some void, but because you're adding something new and good to our lives. What about Sarah's parents? Hannah asked, voicing another fear that had been circling. What will they think about you dating? About another woman being around the girls? Sarah's parents have been encouraging me to date for the past year, Eli said with a small smile. They love the girls, and they want them to have as many people loving them as possible. They've always said that loving me and loving their grandchildren means wanting us to be happy, even if that means moving forward. You've talked to them about this? About me? I called Sarah's mom on Sunday, after you left, because I needed to talk to someone who would understand what I was feeling. Eli's thumb traced circles on the back of Hannah's hand. She said she'd been wondering when I'd meet someone who made me smile again. She wants to meet you when you're ready. Hannah felt something loosen in her chest. What did you tell her about me? That you're kind and patient and good with the girls, that you make me laugh, that you understand about Sarah and you're not threatened by her memory. He paused. That I'm falling for you, and it's terrifying, and I don't know how to do this, but I want to figure it out. You're falling for me? Hannah whispered. Yes. Eli's eyes held hers, steady and sure. I know it's fast. I know we're probably breaking all the rules about how quickly you're supposed to develop feelings. But I can't help it. When I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to want something for myself, not just for my daughters. And when you're not there, I miss you. We all do. Hannah felt tears prickling behind her eyes. I'm falling for you too, all of you, and that's what scares me. Because if this doesn't work, I'm not just losing you, I'm losing them too. Then we don't let it not work, Eli said simply. We communicate, we're honest. We take it one day at a time and we figure it out together. What about boundaries? What do I do when the girls want me to come to every school event, or when they start calling me something other than Miss Hannah, or when they expect me to be there for bedtime? And we figure it out, Eli repeated gently. Together. There's no rule book for this, Hannah. No instruction manual for how to blend a family or how to love someone who comes with kids and grief and complications. We just do our best and hope it's enough. Hannah wiped at her eyes, frustrated with the tears that wouldn't quite stay put. I want this to work, Eli. I want it so badly it scares me. Me too. He squeezed her hand, and I promise you, we'll take this at whatever pace you need. If you need to slow down, we slow down. If you need space to figure out your feelings, we give you space. The girls and I aren't going anywhere. What if I mess up? What if I do or say the wrong thing? Then we talk about it and figure out how to do better next time. Eli smiled, and it was that real smile that made his whole face soften. Hannah, I'm not expecting you to be perfect. I'm just hoping you'll stick around while we all figure out how to do this. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands still linked across the table. Mrs. Chen passed by with a knowing smile, refilling their coffees without being asked. So we're doing this? Hannah asked finally. We're doing this. No more avoiding the hard conversations? No more avoiding, Eli agreed. And I promise, if something's bothering you or if you feel overwhelmed, you tell me. Immediately. No suffering in silence because you're worried about hurting my feelings. Same goes for you, Hannah said. If I overstep with the girls or if you need me to pull back, you have to tell me. Deal. Hannah felt the knot of anxiety that had been living in her chest since yesterday's conversation with Jenna finally begin to loosen. They hadn't solved everything. There would still be complications and hard moments and times when they'd have to navigate difficult situations. But at least they were going into it with open eyes and honest hearts. Can I ask you something? Eli said. Anything. What changed between Saturday and now? You seemed so comfortable with everything, and then suddenly you wanted to have this conversation. What happened? Hannah considered not telling him, but they'd just promised honesty. Jenna said some things that got in my head, about how I dive in too quickly, about how I don't always think about the consequences. And she wasn't wrong. My ex-husband used to say the same thing, that I loved too much, too fast, too intensely, that I didn't know how to hold back. That's not a flaw, Eli said quietly. It is when it gets you hurt. Hannah, look at me. She did, meeting his steady green gaze. The way you love isn't a flaw. It's not something you need to fix or tone down. And anyone who made you feel like you needed to be less than you are wasn't worthy of you in the first place. But what if... No! His voice was firm but gentle. No what-ifs. No catastrophizing. We're here right now, in this moment, and right now we're okay. We're more than okay. So let's start from there. Hannah nodded, feeling something settle inside her. Okay. Besides, Eli added with a slight smile, if we're being honest about fears, I should probably tell you that I'm terrified you're going to realize I have no idea what I'm doing. That you're going to figure out I'm just making this up as I go along. That half the time I feel like I'm failing as a father, and that sometimes I eat cereal for dinner when the girls are at their grandparents' house because I'm too tired to actually cook. Hannah laughed, surprised into it. You eat cereal for dinner? Fruity Pebbles, if we're being specific. Don't judge me. I eat popcorn for dinner at least once a week. See? We're perfect for each other. They stayed at the coffee shop for another hour, talking through logistics and expectations. They decided that Hannah would keep coming for weekend visits, but they'd be intentional about also having adults-only time. They agreed that Hannah would follow Eli's lead when it came to discipline and big parenting decisions, but that she could absolutely help with homework and art projects and the general chaos of everyday life. They talked about holidays, still months away but important to consider, and how they'd navigate the girls' memories of past Christmases with their mother. They discussed meeting each other's families, and Eli admitted he was nervous about meeting Hannah's 17 nieces and nephews all at once. We can do it in shifts, Hannah assured him. My siblings are scattered across 3 states. You won't have to meet everyone simultaneously. That's almost disappointing. I was hoping to get the interrogation over with in one go. Trust me, you do not want to face my entire family at once. My brother Marcus alone could take up an entire evening with questions. When they finally left the coffee shop, the gray morning had transformed into a clear afternoon. The earlier rain clouds burned away by autumn's sun. They stood by Hannah's car, neither quite ready to say goodbye. So I'll see you Saturday? Eli asked. Same time? Same time. And I'll bring Bear. The girls are going to lose their minds. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Thank you for this, for being honest about your fears, for giving us a chance to talk things through. Thank you for listening, for not making me feel crazy for being scared. You're not crazy. You're careful with your heart. There's a difference. They stood there for another moment, the space between them charged with possibility. Then Eli leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. That's still not the rain check kiss, he murmured against her skin. I know. I'm waiting for the right moment, when we're not in a parking lot or being watched by my daughters through a window. I'm okay with waiting. But when he pulled back, the look in his eyes suggested that waiting was becoming increasingly difficult for both of them. Hannah drove back to the clinic for her afternoon appointments with her head clearer and her heart lighter. She'd been honest about her fears, and Eli hadn't run away. They'd had the hard conversation, and they'd come out the other side stronger for it. Maybe Jenna had been right to worry, but she'd also been wrong about one thing. Hannah wasn't diving in blind. She was diving in with her eyes wide open, fully aware of the risks, and choosing to take the leap anyway. Her phone buzzed as she was walking into the clinic. Lily. Miss Hannah, Daddy told us you're still coming on Saturday. We finished Bear's present. It's so good. Rose. Also, I finished the painting. You're going to love it. Everyone looks so happy. Hannah smiled and typed back. I can't wait to see everything. Only 2 more days. Lily. That's too long. Rose. Lily's being dramatic. 2 days is fine. We'll survive. Lily. Says you. I'm dying of waiting. Hannah was laughing at her phone when Jenna appeared beside her, 2 patient files in hand. You look happy, Jenna observed. I am happy. Good talk with Eli? Really good talk. You were right that we needed to have it, but wrong about the outcome. We're not slowing down. We're just being more intentional about moving forward. Jenna studied her for a moment, then smiled. Okay then, I'm officially back to being fully supportive and not at all worried. You're still a little worried. I'm your best friend. I'm always going to be a little worried. It's in the job description. Jenna handed her the patient files. Now stop texting your boyfriend and his adorable children and get back to work. Mrs. Henderson's poodle has been waiting for 15 minutes, and you know how she gets. The next 2 days crawled by with the strange slowness of anticipation. Hannah found herself watching the clock at work, counting down the hours until Saturday. She deep-cleaned her house in preparation for Bear to meet his new friends, bought special treats she thought the girls might like, and changed her outfit approximately 7 times on Friday night while trying to decide what to wear the next day. This is ridiculous, she told Bear, who was watching her with patient resignation from his bed. I've already met them. I've spent an entire day with them. Why am I nervous? But she knew why. Because this time felt different. This time they were moving forward with intention, with promises made and boundaries established. This time she was walking into Eli's house, not as a blind date or a new acquaintance, but as someone who was becoming part of their lives. Saturday morning arrived bright and cold, the kind of November day that promised winter wasn't far behind. Hannah loaded Bear into her car, along with the treats and a toy she'd bought him, a rope shaped like a bone that squeaked when you squeezed it. Bear was vibrating with excitement, sensing that something unusual was happening. Good boy, she told him, scratching behind his ears. You're about to meet some very important people. I need you to be on your best behavior. Bear woofed agreeably, and Hannah chose to interpret that as a promise. The drive to Eli's house felt both endless and too short. When she pulled into the driveway, the front door flew open before she'd even turned off the engine, and 2 red-jacketed tornadoes came running out. Bear's here! Hannah got out and opened the back door, and Bear bounded out with his tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggled. The girls descended on him with squeals of delight, and Bear, who was normally reserved with strangers, seemed to understand immediately that these tiny humans were friends. He sat patiently while they petted him and examined his ears and told him about all the adventures they were going to have together. Girls, let Bear breathe, Eli called from the porch, and Hannah looked up to see him leaning against the railing, wearing jeans and a green flannel shirt that matched his eyes, watching the chaos with an expression of pure fondness. "He's perfect," Lily announced, hugging Bear around the neck. "Miss Hannah, he's the most perfect dog ever." "I told you you'd like him," Hannah said, making her way to the porch where Eli waited. "Hey," he said softly when she reached him. "Hey, yourself. I missed you. It's been 2 days." "I know." He smiled, that real smile that transformed his whole face. Turns out 2 days is a long time. Before Hannah could respond, Rose appeared with something wrapped in tissue paper. "Miss Hannah, we have Bear's present. Can he open it now?" "Let's let everyone inside first," Eli suggested. "It's cold out here." They trooped inside, Bear included, and Marmalade took one look at the large dog in her territory and disappeared upstairs with an offended flick of her tail. The girls led Bear to the living room where they'd set up what could only be described as a welcome station, a dog bed they decorated with marker drawings, a bowl with Bear written on it in careful letters, and the wrapped present. "We made it ourselves," Lily explained as Hannah helped Bear settle on the decorated bed. "Well, Daddy helped with the sewing parts, but we did all the ideas." Rose carefully unwrapped the present to reveal a hand-sewn toy, slightly lumpy and stitched with different colors of thread, but clearly made with love. It was vaguely bone-shaped, and someone had embroidered Bear on one side. "The girls designed it," Eli said from the doorway. "I just executed their vision." "You made this?" Hannah looked at him, touched beyond words. "We all did. It's a team effort." Bear sniffed the toy carefully, then picked it up gently in his mouth and lay down with it between his paws. Both girls cheered like he'd just performed a miracle. "He loves it!" Rose exclaimed. "Of course he does," Hannah said, her throat tight. "It's the best present anyone's ever made him." The morning passed in a blur of activity. They took Bear for a walk around the neighborhood, the girls taking turns holding his leash and explaining all the important landmarks. "That's where Tommy lives. He has 3 cats. That's the house with the best Halloween decorations. That tree is the oldest one on the street. Daddy says it's probably 100 years old." They came back to find Eli had made hot chocolate, and they sat in the living room while the girls showed Hannah their latest projects. Lily's solar system was now complete and spectacular, hanging from her ceiling with each planet at the correct relative distance. "Jupiter has the most moons," she explained with authority. 79 of them. Can you imagine having 79 moons? Rose's painting was everything Hannah had imagined and more. She'd painted them all in the treehouse, faces simplified but recognizable. Eli with his dark hair and green eyes, the twins in their red jackets, Hannah with her brown hair, and the green sweater she'd worn that first Saturday, Bear's German Shepherd colors captured perfectly, even Marmalade curled in one corner. They all looked happy, and there was something about the composition, about the way Rose had painted them all touching somehow. A hand on a shoulder, Bear's head on Hannah's lap, the girls leaning against their father, that made Hannah's eyes sting. "Rose, this is beautiful," she said quietly. "Do you like how I painted you?" Rose asked, suddenly shy. "I love how you painted me. I love all of it." "You're smiling in it? Everyone's smiling." "We are," Hannah agreed, looking at the painted faces, all radiating joy. "That's how I see us," Rose said simply. "Happy." Eli, who'd been watching this exchange from across the room, made a sound that might have been agreement or emotion. When Hannah looked at him, his eyes were bright. Lunch was sandwiches and soup, eaten at the kitchen table with Bear lying nearby, his new toy still held carefully in his mouth. The girls chattered about their week at school, about the book they were reading in class, about the upcoming Thanksgiving break, and whether it was too early to talk about Christmas presents. "It's definitely too early," Eli said firmly. "We're not discussing Christmas until after Thanksgiving." "But Daddy—" "No buts. Turkey first, then presents." After lunch, while Eli loaded the dishwasher, Hannah found herself alone with the girls in the living room. They settled on the couch on either side of her, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then Lily said quietly, "Miss Hannah, can we ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you going to be Daddy's girlfriend?" Hannah's heart stuttered. She'd known this question would come eventually, but she hadn't expected it today. "Would that be okay with you if I was?" Both girls nodded immediately. "We want Daddy to have a girlfriend," Rose said. "We want him to be happy." "He is happy," Hannah said gently. He's happy because he has you. But he's happier when you're here, Lily said with the brutal honesty of 6-year-olds. He smiles more. Real smiles, not the pretend ones. Hannah didn't know what to say to that. From the kitchen, she could hear Eli still moving around, could hear the water running. She wondered if he could hear this conversation, if he was listening from the other room. I care about your daddy very much, she said carefully, and I care about both of you, but I want you to know something important. She waited until both girls were looking at her. I'm not trying to be your mommy. Your mommy was special and wonderful, and no one can replace her. I'm just someone who thinks your family is pretty amazing and would like to spend time with you. Is that okay? So you'd be like… Rose paused, thinking, like a bonus person? Someone extra who loves us? Hannah felt her eyes burn. Yeah, like a bonus person. I like that, Lily decided. We could use a bonus person. Me too, Rose agreed, then quieter. Would it be okay if we loved you too? Or is that not allowed? Oh, sweetheart. Hannah pulled Rose into a hug, and Lily immediately joined in. You can love whoever you want. There's no limit on love. The more people you love, the bigger your heart gets. Good, Lily said, her voice muffled against Hannah's shoulder. Because we already love you. We decided 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago? But we've only known each other for 2 weeks. We're fast deciders, Lily explained with complete seriousness. From the kitchen doorway, Eli's voice was rough. Girls, why don't you go check on Bear? I think he might need to go outside. Both girls scrambled off the couch and ran to find Bear, leaving Hannah and Eli alone in the living room. He crossed to her quickly and sat beside her on the couch. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't know they were going to ask you that. It's okay. They have every right to ask questions. Did you mean what you said about being a bonus person? Every word. Eli reached for her hand. They do love you, you know. It's not just kid hyperbole. They've never been like this with anyone. I love them too, Hannah whispered. Is that okay? Is it too soon to say that? No. Eli's voice was fierce. It's not too soon. And Hannah, I love you too. I know we're breaking all the rules about timing, but I don't care. I love you, and I'm tired of pretending I don't. Hannah turned to him. This man who'd been 17 minutes late to their first date, who was learning to smile, real smiles again, who was navigating grief and single parenthood and the terrifying vulnerability of opening his heart to someone new. I love you too, she said. And then, finally, after weeks of stolen glances and almost moments and promises of rain checks, Eli kissed her. It was soft and sweet and tasted like hope and new beginnings. His hand came up to cup her face, gentle and sure, and Hannah leaned into it, into him, into this moment that felt like a promise. When they pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Eli rested his forehead against hers. Finally, he murmured, Worth the wait? Worth everything. A giggle from the doorway made them both turn to find 2 6-year-old girls peeking around the corner, hands over their mouths, eyes dancing with mischief and joy. We knew it, Lily stage whispered to Rose. Told you they would kiss, Rose whispered back. Girls, Eli said, but he was laughing. Privacy? Ever heard of it? We came to tell you Bear needs to go out, Lily said, completely unrepentant. But this was way better. They ran off giggling, and Hannah buried her face in Eli's shoulder, her body shaking with laughter. Your daughters are menaces, she said. I know. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Hannah pulled back to look at him. I love them exactly as they are. Even when they're spying on private moments? Especially then. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the backyard teaching Bear to play fetch with the girls, having tea parties in the treehouse where Bear had to squeeze through the entrance and somehow managed to look dignified while wearing a paper crown. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they all lay on a blanket in the yard, watching clouds and making up stories about their shapes. That one looks like a dragon, Lily said, pointing. I think it looks like a dinosaur, Rose countered. It's a dragoraptor, Hannah suggested. Half dragon, half raptor. That's not a real thing, Lily said. It could be, Eli offered, in a world where anything's possible. They lay there in comfortable silence for a while, And Hannah thought about how just 3 weeks ago she'd been sitting in a coffee shop ready to give up on a blind date, ready to text her friend and go home to her quiet house and her safe, predictable life. And now she was here, lying on a blanket with a man she loved and two girls who'd stolen her heart and a dog who was currently trying to catch leaves blowing across the yard. She was here, part of something bigger and messier and more beautiful than she could have imagined. Hannah? Eli's voice was quiet, meant only for her ears. Yeah? Thank you for taking a chance on us, for staying that first night, for all of this. Hannah reached over and laced her fingers through his. Thank you for being 17 minutes late. He laughed softly. Best tardiness of my life. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the girls started to get cold, they packed up and headed inside. Eli started dinner while Hannah helped the girls set the table. The real table this time, with the good plates, because Lily declared that tonight was special and special nights required the good plates. Over pasta and salad, they talked about the week ahead, about Thanksgiving plans that were now shared plans, about whether Bear could come for that too. Obviously, yes, Lily declared, and no one argued. They talked about Rose's upcoming art show at school and Lily's science presentation on the solar system. They talked about ordinary things and extraordinary things, about the small moments that build a life. After dinner, after the girls had gone upstairs for their bath, Hannah helped Eli clean the kitchen. They moved around each other easily, a rhythm already forming, and Hannah marveled at how natural it felt. You're good at this, Eli said, drying the last plate. At dishes? At being part of this. Of us. He set down the dish towel and turned to face her. I know we're taking it one day at a time. I know we're still figuring things out. But Hannah, I need you to know this isn't casual for me. This isn't just dating. You're already part of our family, and I want you to keep being part of it. I want that too, Hannah said. All of it. The good days and the hard days and everything in between. Even when the girls are being menaces? Especially then. Upstairs, they could hear the sounds of bath time chaos, splashing and giggling and Eli's name being called with varying degrees of urgency. He sighed fondly. I should probably go supervise before they flood the bathroom. Go, Hannah said with a smile. I'll finish up down here. She watched him climb the stairs, heard his voice joining the chaos above, and felt something settle deep in her chest. This was her life now, this noise and warmth and love. This family that had found her when she wasn't even looking. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. So, how's the weekend going? Hannah smiled and typed back, It's perfect. I'll tell you everything tomorrow. That good? Better. Jenna, I think this is it. I think this is my family. There was a pause and then, I'm so happy for you, Han, and I'm sorry I worried so much. Sometimes the best things are worth the risk. Always, Hannah agreed. When Eli came back downstairs 20 minutes later, hair damp from being splashed during bath supervision, Hannah was curled up on the couch with Bear at her feet and Marmalade surprisingly settling on the arm of the couch nearby. The girls want you to come say goodnight, he said. Hannah followed him upstairs to their bedroom, where both girls were tucked into their respective beds, hair damp and smelling of strawberry shampoo. Good night, Miss Hannah, they chorused. Hannah went to each bed, pressing kisses to foreheads that smelled like childhood and dreams. Good night, Lily. Good night, Rose. Thank you for sharing your day with me. Will you come back tomorrow? Lily asked sleepily. If your dad says it's okay. It's okay, Eli said from the doorway. Then yes, I'll come back tomorrow. And the day after? Rose asked. And every day you'll have me, Hannah promised, and realized with a start that she meant it, every single day. As they left the girls' room, Lily called out one more time, Miss Hannah? We're really glad you stayed that night at the coffee shop. Hannah turned back, silhouetted in the doorway. Me too, sweetheart. Best decision I ever made. Downstairs, as Hannah gathered Bear's things and prepared to leave, Eli pulled her into a long hug. You don't have to go, he murmured into her hair. You could stay. We could watch a movie, talk more, just be. I should go, Hannah said reluctantly. Early shift at the clinic tomorrow. But you'll come back after. Absolutely. They stood at her car for a long time. neither quite ready to say goodbye. When Eli finally kissed her again, it was slower this time, deeper, full of promise and possibility. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too." Hannah drove home with Bear sleeping in the back seat and her heart so full it felt like it might burst. She'd gone to that coffee shop 3 weeks ago expecting nothing more than a mediocre blind date and maybe a free latte. Instead, she'd found everything she didn't know she was looking for. A man who was learning to live again. 2 girls who needed someone to love them as fiercely as they loved others. A family that was learning to be whole again, even with pieces missing. And a place where she fit perfectly, like she'd been meant to be there all along. Sometimes love doesn't arrive on time, she thought as she pulled into her driveway. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late, delivered by 2 6-year-old matchmakers, and comes with complications and grief in a ready-made family. But sometimes, she thought, as she climbed into bed with her phone already lighting up with goodnight texts from 3 members of the Parker family, that's exactly what makes it worth keeping. November melted into the kind of rhythm Hannah had only read about in books. The comfortable, lived-in pattern of people building a life together. She started keeping a toothbrush at Eli's house, then a change of clothes. Then half her closet seemed to migrate to the spare bedroom that nobody mentioned was slowly becoming hers. Bear had his own bed in the living room now, right next to Marmalade's favorite sunspot, and the two had formed an unlikely alliance based on mutual tolerance and the girls' insistence that they were best friends. Thanksgiving arrived cold and bright, and Hannah found herself in Eli's kitchen at 7 in the morning, helping him prep a turkey while the girls were still asleep upstairs. Her own parents were spending the holiday in Florida with her sister, and she'd been prepared to work the holiday shift at the clinic until Eli had looked at her with those green eyes and said, "Spend it with us. Please. The girls have already set a place for you." Now she stood at the counter chopping vegetables for stuffing while Eli wrestled with the turkey, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I can't believe you've never made a Thanksgiving turkey before," Eli said, elbow deep in poultry. "I've made chicken. How different can it be?" "So different. This is like the Olympics of cooking. There's timing and basting and the constant fear that you'll give everyone food poisoning." "Very reassuring," Hannah laughed. "Should I be worried?" "Nah, I've done this twice before. The first year after Sarah died, I nearly burned down the kitchen because I forgot to take the giblets out. Last year was better. This year, I have help." He looked at her over the turkey, his expression soft. "This year is already better." The day unfolded in controlled chaos. Sarah's parents arrived at noon, and Hannah's anxiety about meeting them dissolved within minutes when Sarah's mother, Patricia, pulled her into a hug and whispered, "Thank you for bringing laughter back into this house." Sarah's father, Robert, was quieter but no less welcoming, and within an hour he was showing Hannah photos of Sarah and telling stories that made the girls giggle and Eli smile with more fondness than pain. "She would have liked you," Patricia said to Hannah while they were in the kitchen, ostensibly checking on the turkey but really having a moment alone. Sarah always said Eli needed someone who could handle his overthinking, someone practical and kind. "I'm not trying to replace her," Hannah said quietly, the old fear surfacing. "Oh, honey, we know that, and Eli knows that. Sarah will always be the girl's mother, always be Eli's first love, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for you too." Patricia touched Hannah's arm gently. "Love doesn't run out. It just grows to fit whoever needs it." Hannah blinked back tears. "Thank you for being okay with this. With me. We're more than okay. We're grateful. Those girls need as many people loving them as possible, and Eli needs someone who sees him as he is now, not as the widower stuck in grief." Patricia smiled. "Besides, I've seen the way he looks at you. That's not a man settling for company. That's a man in love." Dinner was loud and warm, and exactly what Thanksgiving should be. The turkey was perfectly cooked, the stuffing was only slightly burned on the edges, and the girls told everyone who would listen about their upcoming winter concert at school where they had solos. "Well, we're in the chorus, but we're in the front row, so basically solos," Lily clarified. After dinner, while the adults lingered over coffee and pie, the girls dragged Hannah to their room to show her the dresses they'd be wearing to the concert. "They're matching," Rose explained unnecessarily, holding up 2 identical red velvet dresses. "Grandma Patricia bought them for us." "But we're going to wear different tights," Lily added, so people can tell us apart. I'm wearing the white ones, Rose said. And I'm wearing the sparkly ones, Lily announced, because I like sparkle. Hannah helped them hang the dresses carefully in their closet, and as she did, Rose said quietly, Miss Hannah, can I ask you something? Always. Are you going to come to our concert? Of course I'm coming. I wouldn't miss it. Some kids' parents don't come, Lily said matter-of-factly. Emma's dad missed her last concert because he had to work. I'll be there, Hannah promised. Front row if they'll let me. Really? Rose's face lit up. Really? I'll probably cry and embarrass you both, but I'll be there. You can't embarrass us, Lily said with complete confidence. You're too nice to be embarrassing. Downstairs, Hannah found Eli loading the dishwasher while his in-laws gathered their things to leave. Patricia hugged her again, longer this time, and whispered, You're good for him. For all of them. After everyone left, after the girls finally crashed from their sugar high and were tucked into bed, Eli and Hannah collapsed on the couch in the living room. The house was quiet except for the soft sounds of Bear snoring in his bed and Marmalade purring somewhere upstairs. That was a good day, Eli said, his arm around Hannah's shoulders, her head resting on his chest. The best, Hannah agreed. Sarah's parents really like you. I really like them. I was worried, Eli admitted. I didn't know how today would go. Having you here, having them here, all of us together. I thought it might feel wrong somehow, like I was trying to erase Sarah or move on too fast. And did it feel wrong? No, it felt right. It felt like family growing instead of family replacing. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Thank you for being here, for being patient with all of this. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Hannah found herself thinking about how much had changed in just a month. How a blind date that started 17 minutes late had turned into this, into belonging, into love, into a future she was just beginning to imagine. Hannah, Eli's voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Move in with us. Hannah's breath caught. She sat up to look at him, searching his face. What? Move in. You're here almost every day anyway. You have clothes in the spare room, your coffee mug in the cabinet, your toothbrush in the bathroom. The girls ask for you every morning. Bear has basically claimed the living room as his territory. Eli took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I know it's fast. I know we're breaking every rule about relationship timelines. But I don't care about rules anymore. I care about you, and I want you here, officially, permanently. Eli, Hannah's mind was racing. Move in. With him, with the girls, turn this tentative new relationship into something solid and real and undeniable. That's huge. I know. We've only been together for a month. 5 weeks, he corrected with a small smile. But who's counting? What if it's too soon? What if we're not ready? What if we are? Eli cupped her face gently. Hannah, I spent 2 years barely surviving. I got up every day and went through the motions because the girls needed me to. But I wasn't living, I was just existing. And then you walked into that coffee shop and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to want something, to look forward to tomorrow instead of just dreading it. You're making it very hard to be practical about this. Good. Because I'm tired of being practical. I want to be impulsive and hopeful and all those things I forgot how to be. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Say yes. Move in with us. Let's build this life together. Hannah thought about her little house across town, about the quiet evenings with just her and Bear, about the safe, predictable life she'd built after her divorce. And then she thought about this house, about butterfly pancakes and treehouse passwords and 2 little girls who'd stolen her heart. About Eli's smile becoming more real every day, about belonging to something bigger than herself. Yes, she whispered. Eli's face transformed, joy flooding through him. Yes? Yes. I'll move in with you, with all of you. He kissed her then, deep and sure, and Hannah let herself fall into it, into him, into the promise of this new life they were building. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Eli rested his forehead against hers. The girls are going to lose their minds when we tell them. When should we tell them? Tomorrow. Let's tell them tomorrow. He grinned. Unless you want to wake them up right now, because I'm not sure I can wait that long. Let them sleep, Hannah laughed. We can tell them in the morning. But morning came with its own complications. Hannah had an early surgery scheduled. A golden retriever who'd eaten a sock, because apparently that's what Thursdays were for. And by the time she got back to Eli's house that afternoon, the girls were already home from school and buzzing with their own news. Miss Hannah! Miss Hannah! They mobbed her the moment she walked through the door. Guess what happened at school today? I can't possibly guess, Hannah said, crouching down to their level. Mrs. Martinez asked us to draw pictures of our families, Rose said, her eyes shining. And we both drew you in ours. Hannah's throat tightened. You did? We drew Daddy and you and us and Bear and Marmalade, Lily explained. And Mrs. Martinez said our families looked very happy. Can I see the pictures? They ran to get their backpacks, and Hannah stood slowly, finding Eli in the kitchen doorway, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. They've been talking about it all afternoon, he said quietly, about how you're part of the family now, about how they hope you never leave. Eli, I think they're ready to hear our news. The girls returned with construction paper masterpieces, and Hannah studied each one carefully. They'd drawn stick figures with surprising detail. Eli tall with green scribbles for eyes, the twins in their red jackets, Hannah with brown hair and what looked like a stethoscope around her neck, Bear impressively large, Marmalade tiny but dignified. They were all holding hands in both pictures, and the sun in the corner had a smile on it. These are beautiful, Hannah said, her voice not quite steady. You're crying, Rose observed. Are you sad? No, sweetheart. I'm happy. Very happy. Hannah wiped at her eyes. Actually, your dad and I have something to tell you, something exciting. Both girls looked at Eli, who came to sit on the couch with them. Hannah joined him, and suddenly they were all together, a unit, and Hannah's heart felt too big for her chest. What is it? Lily asked, practically vibrating with anticipation. Well, Eli said, taking Hannah's hand, Miss Hannah and I were talking last night, and we have a question for you both. How would you feel if Miss Hannah moved in with us? If this became her home too? For a moment, both girls were perfectly still. Then they exploded. Really? You're moving in? Like forever? Does this mean you'll be here every morning? And every night? Can Bear live here too? And will you help us with our homework? And make pancakes with Daddy? The questions tumbled over each other, and Eli and Hannah laughed, trying to answer them all at once. Yes, really. Yes, forever. Yes, every morning and every night. Yes, Bear would live here too. Yes to homework help and pancakes and everything else. Finally, Lily asked the question that mattered most. Does this mean you're going to be our family for real, not just visiting family? Yes, Hannah said, pulling both girls into a hug. I'm going to be your family for real. Good, Rose said, her voice muffled against Hannah's shoulder. Because we already decided you were family anyway. Now it's just official. The next 2 weeks were a blur of packing and moving and figuring out how to merge two households into one. Hannah's house went up for rent, and piece by piece, her life migrated to Eli's. Her furniture filled the spare bedroom. It's your office now, Eli insisted. You need a space that's just yours. Her books lined the shelves in the living room, mixed in with Eli's architecture texts and the girls' picture books. Her coffee mug sat next to Eli's in the cabinet, her coat hung by the door next to 4 others, her presence seeping into every corner of the house until it became impossible to remember what it had looked like before her. The girls helped with an enthusiasm that bordered on obsessive, directing the placement of every box, every piece of furniture, every photo frame. That goes there, Lily would announce with complete authority. Miss Hannah's plant needs light, so it has to be by the window. And her fancy plates should be with our fancy plates, Rose added, so we can use them all together for special dinners. Hannah found herself fighting tears at random moments, when she hung her clothes in the closet next to Eli's, when she put her toothbrush in the holder permanently, when she tucked the girls into bed for the first time as someone who lived there, not just visited. This is really happening, she said to Eli one night, after the girls were asleep and they were finally alone in what was now their bedroom. Having second thoughts? He asked, But there was no worry in his voice. He knew her better than that now. Not even close. I'm just overwhelmed. Happy overwhelmed. Good overwhelmed? The best overwhelmed. She curled into his side, fitting perfectly against him. I can't believe this is my life now. Believe it, he murmured into her hair. Because I'm not letting you go. The winter concert arrived on a Wednesday evening in mid-December. Hannah left the clinic early, rushed home to change, home, she thought, still marveling at the word, and arrived at the elementary school with Eli and Sarah's parents. They'd saved seats in the third row, close enough to see the girls' faces, but not so close as to make them nervous. They've been practicing all week, Eli whispered as the lights dimmed. I've heard Jingle Bells approximately 4,000 times. And you loved every minute of it, Hannah whispered back, squeezing his hand. When the curtain opened and the first-grade chorus filed onto the risers in their concert clothes, Hannah spotted the girls immediately. Rose in her white tights, Lily in her sparkly ones, both in their red velvet dresses, scanning the audience until they found their people. When they saw Hannah, both girls' faces lit up with smiles so bright Hannah felt them in her chest. The concert was exactly what elementary school concerts should be, slightly off-key, impossibly sweet, with several children picking their noses, and one boy who waved at the audience through all three songs. But when Lily and Rose sang, their small voices blending with their classmates, Hannah felt tears streaming down her face. You weren't kidding about the crying, Eli murmured, handing her a tissue. Shut up, she said, but she was smiling. After the concert, they found the girls in the crowd of families, and both girls ran to Hannah first, launching themselves at her with the force of small torpedoes. Did you see us? Did you hear my high note? Did you see how I remembered all the words? You were both perfect, Hannah said, hugging them tight. Absolutely perfect. We were pretty good, Lily agreed modestly, then ruined it by adding, we were probably the best ones. Lily Marie Parker, Eli said warningly, but he was fighting a smile. What? We practiced really hard. They went out for ice cream after, despite it being December and freezing outside, because the girls insisted that ice cream was the traditional post-concert celebration. At the ice cream shop, Hannah watched Eli help Rose reach the toppings bar, watched Lily carefully select exactly 3 gummy bears to put on her sundae, watched Patricia and Robert smile at their granddaughters with such love it was almost painful to witness. This was family, Hannah thought. Not just blood and genetics, but choice. Choosing to show up, choosing to love, choosing to make room at the table for one more person. Hannah? Rose tugged on her sleeve. Can you help me? I can't decide between sprinkles and cookie crumbs. Why not both? Hannah suggested. You can do that? You can do anything you want on your ice cream. That's the magic of ice cream shops. Rose's face lit up like Hannah had just revealed the secrets of the universe, and she carefully added both toppings to her sundae with the seriousness of someone defusing a bomb. Later that night, after Patricia and Robert had gone home, after the girls had been tucked into bed still buzzing about their concert success, Hannah found Eli in the living room staring at the Christmas tree they'd put up the previous weekend. The girls had insisted on decorating it entirely themselves, which meant it was chaotic and perfect, with most of the ornaments clustered on the bottom third where small hands could reach. Hey, she said softly, settling beside him on the couch. Hey yourself. He pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights twinkle on the tree. Tonight was perfect, Hannah said eventually. It was, wasn't it? Eli's voice was thoughtful. 3 years ago, Sarah and I sat in that same auditorium and watched the girls' first concert. They were in preschool, and they were singing something about snowflakes. Sarah cried through the whole thing, and I made fun of her for being emotional. Hannah tensed slightly, not sure where this was going. But tonight, Eli continued, I looked over at you crying, and all I could think was how grateful I am. That Sarah got to be there for that first concert. That you got to be here for this one. That my daughters have been loved by 2 incredible women who cry at their concerts. Eli, let me finish, he said gently. I used to think that moving on meant leaving Sarah behind. That loving someone new meant betraying her memory. But tonight, watching you with the girls, watching my in-laws welcome you like family, I realized something. Sarah's not being replaced. Our family is just growing. And somehow, that makes everything she gave us even more precious. Hannah turned to face him, wiping at her eyes. You're making me cry again. Sorry, he said, not looking sorry at all. But I needed you to know that this isn't about replacing anyone or forgetting anyone. It's about all of us moving forward together, carrying the people we've loved with us. I know, Hannah whispered. I know that now. They sat there for a long time, wrapped in each other and the glow of Christmas lights, and Hannah thought about how grief and love weren't opposites. They were companions, walking hand in hand, making room for each other. Christmas preparations took over the house. The girls had very specific ideas about decorations and cookies and what songs were acceptable to play. We need the Mariah Carey one, Miss Hannah. It's not Christmas without the Mariah Carey one. Hannah found herself fully immersed in traditions that were new to her, but felt like coming home. On Christmas Eve, they attended service at the little church the girls went to with their grandparents. Afterward, they drove through neighborhoods looking at lights, Bear wedged between the girls in the back seat, all of them singing along to Christmas carols with varying degrees of accuracy. Next left, Lily directed from the back seat. Mrs. Martinez said the house on Elm Street has a Santa on the roof that moves. They found the house, and true to Lily's intel, there was indeed a mechanical Santa waving from the rooftop. The girls were delighted. Bear was suspicious. Bear was Marmalade, who they'd left at home, was probably destroying something out of spite for being left behind. Back at the house, they had hot chocolate and read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," a tradition Eli said Sarah had started when the girls were babies. Hannah read it aloud while the girls curled up on either side of her on the couch, their eyes already heavy with sleep. That was perfect, Rose murmured when Hannah closed the book. Just like Mommy used to read it, Lily added sleepily. Hannah looked at Eli over the girls' heads, uncertain, but he was smiling, his eyes bright with emotion, but not sadness. Just like Mommy, he agreed softly. And now Miss Hannah reads it too, so you get to keep the tradition going. They tucked the girls into bed, a process that took 3 times longer than it should have because of Christmas Eve excitement, and finally collapsed in their own bed near midnight. Merry Christmas Eve, Eli said, pulling Hannah close. Merry Christmas Eve, she replied, already half asleep. Hannah? I'm going to marry you someday, just so you know. Hannah's eyes flew open. What? Not tomorrow, Eli said quickly. Not even soon, but someday, when we're both ready, when the girls are ready. I just wanted you to know that this isn't temporary for me. You're it. You're my future. Hannah turned in his arms to face him, her heart thundering. You can't just drop that casually and expect me to sleep. Sorry, he said, grinning in the darkness. Should I take it back? Don't you dare. So you'd say yes? Theoretically, in the future? Theoretically, Hannah said, trying to sound casual and failing completely. Yes, I would say yes. Eli kissed her then, soft and slow and full of promise. Good. That's good to know for future reference. You're impossible. You love me anyway. Really do. Christmas morning arrived with the thundering of small feet and excited voices that no amount of "It's Still Dark Outside" girls could contain. By 5:30, they were all awake, gathered in the living room while Lily and Rose distributed presents with the efficiency of tiny red pajama-wearing logistics coordinators. The girls had made Hannah a card, covered in glitter and stickers and drawings of their family, now including Bear and Marmalade, and even what looked like Hannah's car in the driveway. Inside, in careful 6-year-old handwriting, they'd written, "To Miss Hannah, thank you for loving us and Daddy. You are the best bonus person ever. Love, Lily and Rose." Hannah pressed the card to her chest, unable to speak for a moment. Do you like it? Rose asked anxiously. I love it, Hannah managed. It's the best present I've ever gotten. Better than the real presents? Lily asked. So much better than the real presents. Though the real presents were pretty good too. Eli had gotten her a stethoscope with her name engraved on it, for the best veterinarian in Maplewood, and a framed photo of all of them from Thanksgiving, looking like exactly what they were, a family. The girls gave her paintings they'd made at school, and Bear got a new bed that was approximately twice the size of his old one because, as Lily explained, He's a big dog, and he needs a big bed. Hannah gave Eli a leather portfolio for his architecture sketches, which made his eyes go suspiciously bright. She gave the girls matching jewelry boxes with their initials on them, and inside each one, a silver necklace with a tiny charm, a butterfly for Rose, a star for Lily. These are so we can remember today, Hannah explained as she helped them put the necklaces on. The day we were all together as a family for Christmas. Our first Christmas together, Rose said softly, touching her butterfly charm. But not our last, Lily added with complete confidence. We're going to have lots more. After presents, there was breakfast, cinnamon rolls that Eli had made from scratch, which were slightly burned on the edges, but perfect anyway. After breakfast, there was a call from Hannah's parents in Florida, who wanted to know all about her new life and when they could meet Eli and the girls. Next month, Hannah promised, we'll come visit for a long weekend. Sarah's parents came over for lunch, bringing more presents and stories and love. They'd brought Hannah a gift too, a framed photo of Sarah that Patricia said had been Sarah's favorite picture of herself. We want you to have this, Patricia said, pressing it into Hannah's hands, because you should know her, really know her. She was part of this family, and now you are too, and we want you to see what she was like. Hannah looked at the photo. Sarah laughing, her honey-colored hair caught in the wind, her eyes, the same green as her daughter's, bright with joy. She was beautiful and vibrant and so alive it hurt to look at. Thank you, Hannah whispered. I'll treasure this. She would have liked you, Robert said, speaking up for the first time. She always said Eli needed someone who could handle his tendency to overthink everything, someone practical who wouldn't let him spiral. That sounds like me, Hannah said with a small laugh. It is you, Eli said, appearing beside her and looking at the photo of Sarah with fondness rather than pain. And she was right. I did need that. That night, after everyone had gone home, after the girls had finally crashed from their Christmas high, Hannah and Eli cleaned up the living room together. Wrapping paper filled 3 garbage bags. New toys were already scattered across every available surface. The house looked like a Christmas bomb had gone off, and Hannah had never loved a space more. This was a good day, Eli said, surveying the chaos. The best, Hannah agreed. Our first Christmas together. Of many, Hannah echoed Lily's words from the morning. Eli pulled her into his arms, and they swayed together in the middle of the wrapping paper-covered living room. No music playing, just the sound of their breathing and the house settling around them. I love you, he murmured into her hair. I love you too. Thank you for staying. That night at the coffee shop. Thank you for not leaving. Thank you for being 17 minutes late. He laughed softly. Best tardiness of my life. They stood there in the chaos and the warmth, in this house that had become home, with 2 little girls sleeping upstairs and a dog snoring in his oversized new bed and a cat probably plotting something somewhere. They stood there wrapped in each other and the promise of all the days to come. And Hannah thought about how just 2 months ago she'd been sitting in a coffee shop, ready to give up on love, ready to accept that her happy ending might just be her and Bear and a quiet life. She thought about 2 6-year-old girls in red jackets who'd marched into that coffee shop with a mission. She thought about a man who was learning to smile real smiles again. She thought about how sometimes the best things in life arrive 17 minutes late, delivered by tiny matchmakers with big hearts, and come packaged with complications and grief and messy, beautiful, imperfect love. And standing there in Eli's arms, surrounded by the evidence of the life they were building together, Hannah knew with absolute certainty that she wouldn't change a single second of it. Not the blind date that started late, not the interrogation by 6-year-olds, not the hard conversations about grief and boundaries and blending families, not the fear or the uncertainty or the moments when it all felt like too much too fast. Because all of it, every single moment, had led her here, to this house, to this man, to these girls who called her their bonus person, to this family that chose her as much as she chose them, to home. Eli? She said softly. Yeah? I don't need someday. I don't need theoretically. She pulled back to look at him, her heart in her throat. Ask me. For real. Ask me now. His eyes went wide. Hannah. We're already living together. We're already a family. The girls already think of me as permanent. Your in-laws have accepted me. We've already done everything backwards and out of order." She took his face in her hands. "So ask me, because my answer is yes. It's always been yes." Eli's breath caught. Then, slowly, he sank to one knee right there in the middle of the wrapping paper-covered living room, still holding her hand. "I don't have a ring," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't care about a ring." "Hannah Lewis," he said, and his eyes were bright with tears. "Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and the girl's bonus person and part of this chaotic, beautiful, imperfect family we're building?" "Yes," Hannah said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes to all of it. Yes to everything." He stood and kissed her, deep and sure and full of promise, and Hannah kissed him back with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eli rested his forehead against hers. "Merry Christmas," he whispered. "Merry Christmas," she whispered back. From upstairs, there was the sound of small feet hitting the floor. "They're awake," Eli said. "They're going to freak out when we tell them." "Good freaking out or bad freaking out?" "Definitely good." Two sleepy girls appeared at the top of the stairs, backlit by the nightlight in the hallway. "Why are you guys still awake?" Lily asked, rubbing her eyes. "And why is Miss Hannah crying?" Rose added, concerned. "Is something wrong?" Hannah looked at Eli, and he nodded. "Come down here," Hannah said, opening her arms. "We have something to tell you." Both girls padded down the stairs and into the living room, and Eli and Hannah gathered them close. "Nothing's wrong," Hannah assured them. "Everything is very, very right." "Then why are you crying?" Rose asked, touching Hannah's wet cheek. "Because I'm happy. Because your daddy just asked me to marry him, and I said yes." For a moment, both girls were perfectly still, processing. Then they exploded into chaos for the second time that day. "You're getting married? Really? Miss Hannah's going to be our bonus mom? Can we call her mom now? When's the wedding? Can we wear the red dresses? Can Bear be in the wedding?" The questions tumbled over each other, and through it all, Lily and Rose were hugging Hannah and Eli and each other and Bear, who'd woken up from all the noise and was wagging his tail in the chaos. "Girls, girls," Eli said, laughing and crying at the same time. "One question at a time." "Can we call you Mom?" Rose asked, her voice suddenly small and uncertain. "Or is that not allowed?" Hannah's heart cracked open. She looked at Eli, who nodded encouragement. "You can call me whatever feels right to you," Hannah said carefully. "Miss Hannah is good. Hannah is good. And if you want to call me Mom, that's good too. Your mommy Sarah will always be your mommy. No one can change that. But if you want, I can be your mom too. You can have two moms, one who's in heaven watching over you, and one who's here to braid your hair and make pancakes and love you as much as is humanly possible." "Two moms," Lily repeated, testing out the idea. "I like that." "Me too," Rose agreed. Then, carefully, like she was trying on new shoes, "Mom?" Hannah pulled Rose into a fierce hug, unable to speak through her tears. "Mom," Rose said again, more confidently this time. "Our mom." "Our bonus mom," Lily clarified, joining the hug. "The one who came 17 minutes late but was worth the wait." They all laughed through their tears, Eli and Hannah and Lily and Rose, tangled together in the middle of the living room with wrapping paper still everywhere, and the Christmas tree lights twinkling, and Bear pressing his wet nose into the center of their family hug. And somewhere, Hannah thought, in whatever place people went when they left this world, Sarah Parker was smiling. Because her daughters were loved. Because her husband was happy. Because the family she'd built with Eli was growing and thriving and learning to be whole again. Not the same as before. Not trying to be, just different and beautiful and real. Just a family that had learned that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just makes room for new love alongside the old. It grows and shifts and changes shape to hold everyone who needs holding. "Merry Christmas," Hannah whispered to all of them, to Eli and Lily and Rose, and the memory of Sarah that lived in this house, in these girls, in the love that surrounded them all. "Merry Christmas, Mom," the girls chorused back, and Hannah's heart, which she'd thought was already as full as it could get, somehow found room to hold even more love. The morning after Christmas brought reality crashing back in the gentlest way possible. Hannah woke to find both girls squeezed into the bed between her and Eli, Rose's elbow in her ribs and Lily's feet somehow on Eli's face. Bear had claimed the foot of the bed, and Marmalade was perched on the dresser watching the chaos with feline judgment. "This is our life now," Eli mumbled, carefully extracting Lily's toes from his mouth. "Best life ever," Hannah said, meaning it despite the elbow-shaped bruise that was probably forming on her side. They lay there for a few minutes, watching the girls sleep, and Hannah thought about the word that had changed everything last night. Mom. Such a small word to carry so much weight, so much promise, so much responsibility. "Are you okay?" Eli asked quietly, reading her mind like he'd learned to do. "About them calling you Mom?" "I'm terrified," Hannah admitted, "and honored, and so happy I can barely breathe." "That sounds about right." Rose stirred between them, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment she looked confused, like she couldn't remember why she was in her dad's bed. Then her face cleared, and she smiled, a smile so bright and pure it made Hannah's chest ache. "You're still here," Rose said softly. "Of course I'm still here. Where else would I be?" "I don't know. I just wanted to make sure last night was real, that you really said yes." Hannah reached over and smoothed Rose's sleep-mussed hair. "It was real. I really said yes. I'm really going to marry your daddy, and I'm really going to be your mom. All of it was real." "Good," Rose said, snuggling closer, "because I already told Mommy Sarah about you in my prayers last night. I told her you make Daddy smile again, and that you're going to take good care of us, and that she doesn't have to worry anymore." Hannah's eyes flooded with tears. Eli's hand found hers over Rose's head, squeezing tight. "What did she say?" Hannah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "She said thank you," Rose replied with the certainty of someone who'd actually heard it. "She said thank you for loving us." The day unfolded in lazy post-Christmas contentment. They made pancakes for breakfast, regular circles this time, not butterflies, because as Lily explained, butterflies were for special occasions, and they'd already had their special occasion. They played with new toys, built elaborate structures with Lily's new construction set, and Rose painted watercolors at the kitchen table while narrating her artistic choices to anyone who would listen. "This blue is winter morning," she explained to Hannah, "and this blue is ocean at night. They're completely different." "Completely," Hannah agreed seriously, even though they looked identical to her untrained eye. At noon, Hannah's phone rang. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. "I'm calling for my post-Christmas debrief," Jenna announced when Hannah answered. "Tell me everything. How was the first Christmas with your new family?" "Actually," Hannah said, glancing at Eli, who nodded encouragingly, "it was perfect. So perfect that I have news." "What kind of news? Good news, bad news, neutral news?" "The best news. Jenna, we're engaged. Eli proposed last night, and I said yes." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, "I'm sorry, did you just say engaged? As in getting married engaged? As in you've been together for 2 months and you're engaged?" "I know it's fast." "Fast? Han, this is warp speed. This is breaking the sound barrier. This is—" Jenna stopped, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Are you sure? Are you absolutely 100% sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Another pause. Then Jenna laughed, the sound crackling through the phone. "Okay then? Okay. If you're sure, then I'm happy for you. When's the wedding? Please tell me you're at least going to have a normal engagement period." "We haven't talked about timing yet." "Well, figure it out and then call me back so I can start planning. I'm your maid of honor, obviously. That's non-negotiable." After they hung up, Hannah found Eli in the living room attempting to assemble Lily's new dollhouse, while both girls supervised with the intensity of foremen on a construction site. "That piece goes on the other side, Daddy," Lily said. "No, Lily, it goes where Daddy has it," Rose corrected. "See? The instructions say so." "The instructions are wrong." "Instructions can't be wrong. They're instructions." "Girls," Eli said patiently, "how about we let the architect handle the construction?" "But you're doing it wrong," both girls said in unison. Hannah laughed, and Eli looked up with an expression of mock desperation. "Save me," he mouthed. "Sorry, you're on your own with this one," Hannah said. "But when you're done being supervised to death, we should probably talk about wedding plans." "Wedding plans?" Lily's head snapped up. "We get to plan the wedding?" "We definitely need to be involved," Rose added. "We have important opinions." "I'm sure you do," Hannah said, trying not to laugh at Eli's expression of dawning horror. That evening, after the girls were in bed, Hannah and Eli sat at the kitchen table with coffee and a blank notebook ready to make plans. "So," Eli said, pen poised over the empty page, "when are we thinking? Spring? Summer? Next fall?" "What about next month?" Hannah said. Eli's pen clattered to the table. "Next month? As in January? As in 4 weeks from now? Is that crazy? It's completely insane." But he was smiling. "Why next month?" "Because we're already living together. We're already a family. The girls already call me Mom. What are we waiting for?" Hannah reached across the table for his hand. "I don't need a big wedding with 200 guests and a year of planning. I just need you and the girls and the people we love most. Everything else is just details." "You really mean that?" "I really mean that." Eli stood up, walked around the table, and pulled her into his arms. "Have I mentioned that I love you?" "Once or twice, but I don't mind hearing it again." "I love you, and yes, let's get married next month. Let's not wait. Let's just do it." They kissed, and Hannah felt something settle deep in her bones. This was right. This was exactly what she wanted. Planning a wedding in 4 weeks turned out to be both easier and harder than expected. Easier because they kept it simple, immediate family only, a small ceremony at the same church where the girls had their Christmas concert, a reception at Eli's house afterward. Harder because the girls had very specific opinions about everything. "The flowers have to be butterflies," Lily insisted. "Flowers can't be butterflies," Rose corrected, "but we can have butterfly decorations and flowers." "And Bear has to be there," Lily continued. "He's part of the family." "Bear can definitely be there," Hannah assured them. "What about our dresses?" Rose asked. "Can we wear the red velvet ones from the concert?" Hannah looked at Eli, who shrugged with a smile. "It's your wedding. Whatever you want." "Red velvet dresses sound perfect," Hannah said. The girls cheered, and just like that, the wedding party was decided. 2 flower girls in red velvet dresses, 1 German shepherd of uncertain duties, and a bride who was planning her wedding around the opinions of 2 6-year-olds. "Your wedding is going to be so weird," Jenna said when Hannah called to update her, "and I mean that in the best possible way. It's going to be perfect," Hannah corrected. "Same thing." The 3 weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur. Hannah spent her days at the clinic and her evenings taste-testing cakes with the girls. The chocolate one? No, the vanilla one. What about both? And her nights lying in bed with Eli, talking about their future. "I want more kids," Eli said one night, his hand resting on her stomach in a way that made Hannah's breath catch. "If you want them too, the girls keep asking for a baby brother or sister." "They do?" "Almost daily. Rose wants a sister. Lily wants a brother. They're conducting a campaign." Hannah was quiet for a moment, processing. She'd always wanted children, but after her divorce, she'd put that dream on hold. Now suddenly, it was back on the table. "I want that too," she said finally. "Not right away. Let's get married first, let the girls adjust, let us all settle into being a family. But yes, eventually. I want more kids with you." "Yeah? Yeah. Can you imagine? A baby with your eyes and my stubbornness?" "Terrifying," Eli said, but he was grinning. "Absolutely terrifying. Let's do it. Not now, but someday." "Someday," Hannah agreed, and filed that word away with all the other promises they were making to each other. 2 days before the wedding, Hannah's parents flew in from Florida. They'd met Eli and the girls over FaceTime, but meeting in person was different. Hannah was nervous until her mother took one look at the 4 of them together and burst into tears. "Oh, honey," her mom said, pulling Hannah into a hug. "Look at you. You're glowing." "I'm happy, Mom. Really, truly happy." "I can see that." Her mother pulled back to look at her. "And those girls are adorable. And Eli seems wonderful. But Hannah, are you sure you're ready for this? For instant motherhood and all the complications?" "I'm sure, Mom. I know it looks crazy from the outside, but I promise you, this is right. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." Her father, who'd been playing a board game with Lily and Rose, looked up. "Anyone who makes my daughter smile like that has my blessing," he announced. "Welcome to the family, Eli." The night before the wedding, Hannah couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Eli's steady breathing beside her, and felt the weight of everything they were about to do. Tomorrow she would become a wife again, a stepmother, part of a family that came with its own history and grief and complications. "Can't sleep?" Eli's voice was quiet in the darkness. "How did you know I was awake?" "Your breathing changes when you're anxious. What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing. Tomorrow." Hannah turned to face him. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I mess up? What if the girls realize I'm not actually qualified to be anyone's mother?" "Hannah." Eli cupped her face gently. "You're more than qualified. You're more than enough. The girls love you. I love you. And yes, you'll mess up sometimes because that's what parents do. I mess up constantly. But you'll also get it right more often than not, and you'll love them fiercely, and that's all anyone can ask." "What if I can't live up to Sarah's memory?" "You don't have to live up to Sarah's memory. You just have to be yourself." He kissed her forehead. "Sarah was my first love, and she'll always be important to me and to the girls. But you're my second chance at happiness. You're my now and my future, and there's room in this family for both of you. Promise?" "I promise. Now stop overthinking and get some sleep. You're getting married tomorrow, and you're going to be beautiful, and it's going to be perfect." Hannah snuggled closer, breathing in his familiar scent. "Eli." "Hmm?" "Thank you for being 17 minutes late." She felt him smile against her hair. "Thank you for staying." The morning of the wedding arrived cold and bright, with fresh snow covering the ground from an overnight storm. Hannah woke to find the girls already in her room, both bouncing with excitement. "It's your wedding day," Lily announced unnecessarily. "We're going to be flower girls," Rose added. "Real flower girls at a real wedding." Jenna arrived at 9 with coffee and bagels and a determined expression. "Okay, bride, let's get you married." The morning passed in a flurry of preparations. Jenna did Hannah's hair, simple and elegant, with small white flowers woven through. The girls got dressed in their red velvet dresses, and Hannah helped them with their hair, braiding it carefully while they chattered about the ceremony. "Are you nervous?" Rose asked as Hannah worked on her braid. "A little," Hannah admitted, "but it's good nervous, excited nervous." "Daddy's probably really nervous," Lily said. "He gets nervous about everything." "That's true," Hannah laughed. "But we'll take care of him, right?" "Right," both girls agreed. Hannah's dress was simple. Ivory lace, knee-length, nothing like the elaborate gown she'd worn to her first wedding. This time, she wanted something that felt like her, something she could move in, something comfortable, something that said, "This is me, take it or leave it." When she was finally dressed, Jenna stepped back with tears in her eyes. "Han, you look beautiful. Not too simple? Not even close. You look like you. That's what makes you beautiful." The ceremony was at 2 o'clock, and by 1:30, everyone had gathered at the church. It was a small crowd. Hannah's parents, her sister who'd flown in from California, Eli's parents who'd driven up from Georgia, Sarah's parents, a handful of close friends, and of course, the girls. And Bear, who was wearing a bow tie and looking very dignified about the whole thing. Hannah stood in the church's small bridal room, Jenna fussing with her dress, and felt surprisingly calm. This was right. This was exactly what was supposed to happen. A knock on the door made them both turn. Patricia, Sarah's mother, stood in the doorway. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Of course," Hannah said, her heart suddenly pounding. Patricia crossed the room and took Hannah's hands in hers. "I wanted to give you something. Something borrowed, as tradition goes, but also something more than that." She held out a bracelet, simple silver with a single charm, a small butterfly. "This was Sarah's," Patricia said softly. "She wore it every day. When she died, I kept it, thinking maybe I'd give it to the girls when they were older. But I want you to have it. I want you to wear it today." "Patricia, I can't." "You can. You should." Patricia fastened the bracelet around Hannah's wrist. Sarah would have wanted this. She would have wanted someone to love her family the way you do. And I want you to know that we see you, Hannah, not as a replacement for our daughter, but as a new part of our family. As someone who loves our granddaughters and our son-in-law with the same fierceness Sarah did. Hannah couldn't speak. She pulled Patricia into a hug, and they stood there for a long moment, two women connected by love for the same family. Thank you, Hannah finally whispered, for accepting me, for trusting me with them. Thank you for loving them, Patricia replied. Now go get married. Those girls are about to vibrate out of their dresses with excitement. The ceremony itself was perfect in its simplicity. The church was small and warm, decorated with white flowers, and yes, butterfly decorations that the girls had insisted on. Hannah walked down the aisle alone, no one to give her away because she was giving herself. And when she reached the front where Eli waited, the look on his face made everything worth it. Hi, he whispered as she took his place beside him. Hi, she whispered back. The girls stood beside them, Lily on Eli's side, Rose on Hannah's, both holding small bouquets and trying very hard to stand still. Bear sat at the end of the first pew, his bow tie slightly askew, watching everything with the patient dignity of a dog who knew something important was happening. The minister was the same one who'd presided over Sarah's funeral, and when he spoke, his words were carefully chosen to honor both the past and the future. We gather today to celebrate love, he began. Not to replace love that came before, but to make room for new love alongside it. To witness as two people choose each other, as two children gain a mother, as a family grows and changes and becomes something new, while honoring what came before. Hannah felt tears prickling behind her eyes. Beside her, Rose reached up and took her hand, squeezing tight. The vows were traditional, but felt anything but. When Eli promised to love her in sickness and health, for better or worse, until death parted them, Hannah heard the weight of those words. He knew what death looked like. He knew what loss felt like. And he was choosing to risk it again, choosing to open his heart again, choosing her. When it was Hannah's turn, she looked at Eli and spoke from her heart. I promise to love you and your daughters with everything I have. I promise to honor the memory of Sarah while building our own memories. I promise to be patient when you overthink things, to make you laugh when you're too serious, and to remind you that it's okay to be happy again. I promise to show up every day for all of you, for as long as I live. Then, because they'd planned it this way, they turned to the girls. Eli pulled out 2 small boxes and handed one to Hannah. Lily, Rose, Hannah said, her voice shaking slightly. I want to make you a promise too. I promise to be the best mom I can be. I promise to help with homework and come to concerts and paint with you and build solar systems and all the other things moms do. I promise to love you fiercely and protect you always. And I promise that loving you doesn't mean forgetting your mommy, Sarah. It just means there's more love in this family, and you deserve all the love in the world. She opened her box to reveal 2 small rings, simple silver bands with the girls' birthstones. These are promise rings, to remind you that I'm choosing you as much as I'm choosing your daddy, that you're part of this marriage too. Both girls were crying now, and Hannah's hands shook as she slipped the rings onto their fingers. Then Eli opened his box, revealing matching rings for him and Hannah. These are our promise rings too, he said, to remind all of us that we're in this together, all 4 of us. A family. By the time they got to I now pronounce you husband and wife, everyone in the small church was crying. When Eli kissed Hannah, the girls cheered and Bear woofed his approval. And somewhere in the rafters, Hannah swore she felt a presence, something warm and loving and grateful. Thank you for loving them, it seemed to whisper. Thank you for bringing laughter back. The reception was held at their house, Hannah thought with wonder, and it was exactly the kind of party they'd wanted. Simple food, good wine, people they loved gathered in the home they'd built together. The girls ran around in their red dresses showing everyone their promise rings. Bear charmed every guest and stole at least 3 appetizers off the counter when no one was looking. For their first dance, Eli and Hannah swayed together in the living room that had been cleared of furniture, and halfway through the song the girls joined them, and suddenly it was all 4 of them dancing, holding hands in a circle, laughing and spinning until they were dizzy. This is perfect, Rose said breathlessly. This is exactly how weddings should be, Lily agreed. As the afternoon faded into evening, as guests started to leave and someone put the girls down for a nap because they'd finally crashed from excitement, Hannah found herself alone with Eli in the kitchen. "We did it," she said. "We really did." He pulled her close. "How do you feel?" "Like the luckiest person in the world." Hannah looked up at him. "I keep thinking about that night at the coffee shop, about how close I came to leaving, about how different my life would be right now if your daughters hadn't shown up." "I think about that too," Eli admitted, "about all the ways this could have gone wrong, and all the ways it went impossibly right." 17 minutes, Hannah said softly. "That's all it took. 17 minutes late, and everything changed. Best 17 minutes of my life." They stood there in their kitchen in their house with their daughters napping upstairs, and Hannah felt the full weight of everything they'd built together in just 3 months. It was fast, yes. It was crazy, absolutely, but it was also real and true and exactly what they both needed. "Hannah Parker," Eli said, testing out her new name. "That's me," she said, still getting used to it herself. "My wife." "Your wife," she agreed. "And their mom." "And their mom," he echoed. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying. Wonderful. Like coming home." Hannah pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Thank you for taking a chance on me, for not being scared off by how quickly I fell in love with all of you. Thank you for not being scared off by my baggage, for seeing past the grief to the possibility of something new." They swayed together in the quiet kitchen, and Hannah thought about beginnings and endings and all the messy middle parts, about how her first marriage had ended in heartbreak, but led her to this moment, about how Eli's first marriage had ended in tragedy, but he'd found the courage to try again, about how 2 6-year-old girls had lost their mother but were brave enough to love someone new, about how sometimes the best things in life don't follow a plan or a timeline. They just happen, 17 minutes late and completely unexpected, changing everything in the best possible way. 6 months later, on a warm summer evening, Hannah stood in the backyard watching Eli and the girls work on a new addition to the treehouse. They were building a deck, expanding the space, making it bigger, making room for growth. "Mom," Rose called down, "come see what we're doing." "Mom." The word still made Hannah's heart skip, even after months of hearing it daily. She climbed the ladder to find the 3 of them covered in sawdust, grinning like they'd just conquered Everest. "We're making it bigger," Lily explained, "so there's room for the baby." Hannah's hand went instinctively to her stomach, where a tiny life was just beginning to make itself known. They'd only found out last week. They hadn't told anyone yet. "How did you know?" Hannah asked, shocked. "You've been smiling different," Rose said wisely, "and you stopped drinking coffee, and you keep touching your stomach. Nothing gets past you two, does it?" "Nope," both girls said proudly. "Are you excited?" Hannah asked carefully. "About having a brother or sister?" "So excited," Rose said. "We're going to be the best big sisters," Lily added. "We've been practicing with our dolls." Eli pulled Hannah close, his hand joining hers on her stomach. "A baby," he said softly, wonder in his voice. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," Hannah confirmed and watched his eyes fill with tears. That night, after the girls were in bed, after they'd told both sets of grandparents who'd reacted with predictable joy and tears, Hannah and Eli lay in bed talking about their growing family. "Sarah would have loved this," Eli said quietly. "She always wanted more kids. She would have been so happy to know the girls were getting a sibling." "Tell me about her," Hannah said, like she did sometimes when the moment felt right. "Tell me what she was like when she found out she was pregnant with the twins." And Eli did. He told her about Sarah's joy and terror, about how she'd cried for an hour when they found out it was twins, about how she'd painted the nursery herself in shades of yellow and green because she refused to know the genders ahead of time. He told her stories about Sarah, keeping her memory alive, weaving her into the fabric of their life together. And Hannah listened, secure enough in her own place in this family to honor the woman who'd come before her, to celebrate Sarah's life without feeling threatened by it, to understand that love didn't have to be zero-sum, that there was room in this family for all of them, past and present and future. The baby came in late March, arriving 3 weeks early during a spring thunderstorm. Sarah's parents drove through the rain to watch Lily and Rose while Eli and Hannah rushed to the hospital. The labor was fast and intense, and when the doctor finally placed a tiny, red-faced, screaming infant on Hannah's chest, she looked at Eli and saw tears streaming down his face. "It's a boy," the doctor announced unnecessarily. "A son," Eli whispered, touching the baby's tiny hand with wonder. "We have a son." They named him James Parker. James because both Hannah and Eli's grandfathers had that name, creating a bridge between their two families. But within days, everyone was calling him Jamie, and the girls were completely obsessed. "He's so small," Rose breathed, holding him carefully while sitting on the couch between pillows. "He's perfect," Lily declared. "Can we keep him?" "Forever," Hannah promised. "He's ours forever." Watching Lily and Rose with their baby brother, seeing how gentle they were, how protective, how absolutely in love, Hannah felt her heart expand in ways she hadn't known were possible. This was her family. These 3 children, and this man who'd been 17 minutes late to their first date. This chaotic, beautiful, imperfect family that somehow fit together perfectly. "You know what I realized?" Eli said one night when Jamie was 2 months old and sleeping, finally, in his crib upstairs. "What's that?" Hannah asked, half asleep herself on the couch. "We never went back to the coffee shop, to Maple Avenue where it all started." Hannah sat up. "You're right, we haven't. We should go, tomorrow, just the 2 of us. Mrs. Chen must wonder what happened to us." The next day they left Jamie with Patricia and Robert, who were thrilled to babysit, and the girls at a play date and drove to Maple Avenue coffee shop. It looked exactly the same, right down to the hanging plants and exposed brick walls. Mrs. Chen looked up when they walked in, and her face broke into a huge smile. "The late couple," she exclaimed. "I was wondering if you'd ever come back." "The late couple?" Hannah laughed. "That's what I called you in my head," Mrs. Chen explained. "The man who was late and the woman who waited. I saw you 2 that night, saw how you looked at each other once you finally started talking. I told my husband, that couple is going to get married. And look, you're wearing rings." "We got married in January," Eli said, putting his arm around Hannah. "I knew it. I knew it the moment I saw you together." Mrs. Chen clapped her hands. "Sit, sit. Coffee is on the house. This is a celebration." They slid into the same booth where they'd sat that first night, and Mrs. Chen brought them lattes with heart designs in the foam. "So tell me everything," she insisted. "How did it happen? Was it romantic? Do you have children?" They told her the story, the shortened version, because the full version would have taken hours. And Mrs. Chen listened with rapt attention, occasionally exclaiming or wiping at her eyes. "2 daughters and a baby boy," she said when they finished. "And you met them all that first night? The daughters came here?" "They did," Hannah confirmed. "They showed up to make sure I didn't leave because their dad was late." "Smart girls. Very smart girls." Mrs. Chen shook her head in wonder. "And now you're a family. This is why I love my coffee shop. This is where love happens." They stayed for an hour, drinking coffee and eating pastries and remembering that night 7 months ago when everything changed. When Hannah had been ready to leave and 2 little girls had convinced her to stay. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had left?" Eli asked as they were walking back to the car. "All the time," Hannah admitted. "I think about how close I came to missing all of this, how different my life would be." "Mine too." Eli stopped on the sidewalk and pulled her close. "Thank you for staying that night and every night since. Thank you for being worth the wait." They kissed there on Maple Avenue, 7 months after their first date, and Hannah thought about how far they'd come. From strangers in a coffee shop to a married couple with 3 children and a life so full it sometimes felt like her heart couldn't contain all the love. A year after the wedding, on a cold January afternoon, they gathered at the cemetery. All 5 of them, Eli and Hannah, Lily and Rose, and Jamie bundled in a carrier against Hannah's chest. They stood in front of Sarah's grave, the headstone decorated with flowers that Patricia had brought the day before. "Hi, Mommy," Rose said softly, touching the cold marble. "We wanted to tell you about our year." "So much happened," Lily added. "Mom and Daddy got married, and we were flower girls, and we wore our red dresses." "And then Jamie came," Rose continued. "He's our baby brother. He's really cute, but he cries a lot." And Mom is teaching us how to make your famous chocolate chip cookies, Lily said. She asked Grandma Patricia for the recipe, and we make them every Sunday. Hannah stood back a little, giving the girls space to talk to their mother, but Rose reached back and grabbed her hand, pulling her forward. Mom, come here. Mommy Sarah needs to see you. Hannah knelt beside the girls, her heart in her throat. Hi, Sarah, she said quietly. Thank you for these incredible girls. Thank you for loving Eli and showing him what a good marriage looks like. Thank you for making this family possible. And thank you for not being mad that we love Mom too, Lily added, looking at the headstone earnestly. We know you're still our mommy, but Mom is our mommy too. We're lucky because we have two mommies. So lucky, Rose agreed. And Mommy Sarah? Mom makes Daddy really happy. You don't have to worry about him anymore. Eli's arms came around Hannah from behind, and she leaned back against him, feeling the solid warmth of him, the reality of this life they'd built. Jamie stirred against her chest, making small, sleeping sounds, and the girls pressed close on either side. We love you, Mommy, both girls said in unison. Always. They stood there for a few more minutes, a family honoring the woman who'd made part of it possible. Then, as the winter wind picked up and Jamie started to wake, they made their way back to the car. That was good, Eli said as he drove them home. Thank you for doing that, for including Sarah in our life. She's part of our story, Hannah said simply. She always will be. At home they had dinner together, spaghetti that the girls helped make, with sauce that was more on the walls than in the pot, but made with love. They gave Jamie his bath, both girls insisting on helping, arguing about who got to hold the washcloth. They read bedtime stories and sang lullabies and tucked everyone in. And then, finally, Eli and Hannah collapsed on the couch in the living room, exhausted and content. 1 year married, Eli said, pulling Hannah close. How does it feel? Like forever, Hannah said, in the best way. Like, I can't remember what my life was like before you. Before us, Eli corrected. Before all of us. Before all of us, Hannah agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the house settle around them. Upstairs, someone, probably Lily, was talking in her sleep. In the nursery, Jamie made small sounds that meant he'd wake up wanting to eat in about 20 minutes. Marmalade appeared from wherever she'd been hiding and curled up on the arm of the couch. Bear was already asleep in his bed, snoring softly. This was their life. Chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. I have something for you, Eli said suddenly, pulling out his phone. I found this the other day when I was going through old files. He pulled up a photo and showed it to Hannah. It was from that first night, taken by Mrs. Chen without them knowing. They were sitting in the booth at Maple Avenue Coffee Shop, coffee cups in front of them, both leaning forward, completely absorbed in conversation. The look on Eli's face was wonder. The look on Hannah's face was hope. Mrs. Chen emailed it to me yesterday, Eli explained. She said she takes pictures of couples sometimes when she can tell something special is happening. She kept this one, meaning to give it to us, but we didn't come back until now. Hannah stared at the photo, at these two people who had no idea what was coming, who didn't know that in 7 months they'd be married, that in a year they'd have a baby, that they'd build this entire life together from one coffee shop conversation that started 17 minutes late. Look at us, she whispered. We had no idea. No idea at all, Eli agreed. But somehow we knew anyway. Look at how we're looking at each other, like we'd already decided. Maybe we had, Hannah said softly. Maybe some part of us knew even then that this was it. This was it, Eli confirmed, kissing her temple. You were it. You've always been it. That night, after Jamie had woken up and been fed and put back to sleep, after they'd checked on the girls one more time, after they'd finally made it to their own bed, Hannah lay in the darkness thinking about time and chance and the strange way life unfolds. She thought about the blind date she'd almost skipped, about the 17 minutes she'd waited, getting increasingly annoyed, about 2 6-year-old girls in red jackets who'd walked into a coffee shop with a mission. She thought about how close she'd come to walking out, how close she'd come to missing all of this. But she'd stayed, and Eli had shown up, disheveled and apologetic and 17 minutes late. And somehow, impossibly, they'd found each other. They'd built this family, this life, this love that felt both brand new and ancient, like it had always existed and was just waiting for them to find it. "Eli?" she whispered into the darkness. "Hmm?" He was almost asleep, his breathing deep and steady. "If you could go back to that night at the coffee shop, knowing everything that would happen, would you change anything?" He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then, "I'd be on time." Hannah laughed softly. "Really? That's all?" "Well, maybe not," he admitted. "Because being 17 minutes late meant you met the girls first. Meant they got to be part of our story from the very beginning. Meant we started this thing the way we were always meant to, with all of us together, messy and imperfect and completely unconventional." 17 minutes late, Hannah said, snuggling closer to him. "And worth every second." "Worth every second," Eli agreed, his arms tightening around her. "Worth everything." And in the darkness of their bedroom, in the house they'd made into a home, with their children sleeping peacefully upstairs and their whole future stretched out ahead of them, Hannah Lewis Parker, wife, mother, veterinarian, the woman who'd waited 17 minutes and gained a family, finally understood what it meant to be exactly where you belonged. Sometimes love doesn't arrive on time, she thought, as sleep finally claimed her. Sometimes it's 17 minutes late, delivered by two 6-year-old matchmakers in red jackets, and comes packaged with grief and complications and a ready-made family. But when it's real, when it's right, when it's meant to be, those 17 minutes become the best weight of your life. And every moment after is worth it, every single one.